To get to, there is a ton of transfer portal news out there. We need to discuss that. We will do that over the next few hours. Also begin to talk college football playoff matchups. We'll break down different positions today as we have the last few on certain spots. We had bowl games last night. You'll hear from some of the coaches involved in the college football playoff today. Only guest today, Wimp Sanderson at 9 o'clock. So we'll be open to you guys again at different points in time. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in, talk college football playoff. You can do that with us here this morning on WJOX. Listen online, jocksfm.com. The app is in your app store. G-Mac, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, buddy. I had forgotten. I guess I just haven't been to this part of the country in a while. Dude, it is 8 o'clock here, and it's still dark outside.
Are you guys staying in South Bend?
Mishikawa. Are you familiar?
I haven't seen the tape.
I mean, me neither. Everyone was like, you staying in South Bend or Mishikawa? I was like, how do you know what Mishikawa is? I also yesterday did a dive in on the census of South Bend. South Bend since 1980 has had a fluctuation of population somewhere between 101,000 people and 107,000 people. It's never been, in 1930, it raised to about 130,000. And starting in about 1940, it's been somewhere between 101 to 125,000 people. So it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me, this place, it's kind of cool. It kind of feels like a throwback. Like you're going back in time a bit, and a lot of the people that live here have been raised here and have grown up here, and it's multi-generational. It's pretty cool. I haven't really been here since I was a recruit. So it's been a long time, but the campus is spectacular, and it's a really neat place. It is. It's a pretty cool place. It really is.
I've actually never been to South Bend or Mishikawa, and so I don't really know what it's about. I've heard people say how cool it is, just the surrounding areas. And I have a friend of mine that has a lake house not too far from there, who grew up in Indianapolis, and I've just heard great things about the surrounding areas. I'd love to go see a game there. Also, in this environment, also is going to be pretty cool. You had Marcus Freeman on your podcast this week. What's the vibe with him and his football team? What did you take away from how he's feeling about this matchup with Indiana?
No, what's funny is we taped that on Monday of last week, or I don't remember. It was a long time ago, so like I'm glad it didn't sound too dated. My producer, Mark Kubiak, you know Kubes, on that, he's like the biggest Notre Dame fan of all time, and any opportunity he has to talk with Marcus Freeman in a private setting is like his dream. Love Kubes though, and has developed a good relationship with Marcus, and I've kind of known Marcus now. We developed a relationship dating back to his time at Cincinnati, and got to spend quite a bit of time with him that year that they made the run en route to the college football playoff. And I've just always been thoroughly impressed with his ability to relate to the players. I think he creates a very tough football team. I think that there are aspects of his approach that he's had to learn on the job. And like Kirby, you look at those first couple of years, and I've always compared Marcus Freeman to Kirby Smart. And I think that you can focus on the negatives of the first couple of years and some of the mistakes that might have been made in the first couple of years. But if you look at the big picture, he's done a tremendous job, and the guy is really good. I think he's really premier, high level, next generation coach. I think he's just getting started. He's going to be remarkably successful for a very long time. The other thing I'd say about this week's game, I think he knows the stakes. I think he knows that this is, heavy as the head that wears the crown. I haven't visited with him this week, so it's been a while. We'll visit with him today at 9 o'clock, or 10 o'clock, excuse me. But he always feels a little tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You ever been around those coaches that just always feel a little tight? So I can never really get that sense. He was tight before Navy. He was tight before NC State last year. He's been tight before every game I've ever seen him, even when he was a coordinator. So it's hard for me to get a sense, and I'd be curious to see how he does today. We'll be able to kind of update you how it felt tomorrow when we are on the show.
Yeah, he is. He feels like a little bit more of a soft-spoken guy, kind of keeps to himself for the most part, not necessarily, outlandish, trying to do things to make noise, but obviously a good coach, and they've got their hands full in this game. And when you look at the first ever playoff game in the 12-team playoff, it's going to be Indiana and Notre Dame. What is the biggest concern for you for the Irish in this matchup with the Hoosiers?
Well, it's pretty clear and obvious for me. I think the Hoosiers, if they can't protect, they're in big trouble. I mean, I've watched 6 of their games. I texted you about this a couple days ago. Their offensive line has pieces that I like. Yeah, I think they're solid for the most part. And I do think that when I look at some of the problems that they had against Ohio State and even to a lesser extent against Michigan, it was individual matchups that were won in Michigan. Like Mason Graham's amazing, 78's amazing. Like they have really good pieces, right? So it's a little bit easier to chalk it up and say, all right, they had guys that got beat in that game. But the overloads of protection, having 2 guys on the tackle while you're only rushing 5, having unblocked guys when you're only rushing 5, loopers that would get home against Ohio State, that gives me concern because that is something that Notre Dame can do quite well. Notre Dame's best pass rusher got hurt early in the year, Boubacar Traore. They still have 2 pretty good defensive tackles that can get after you, but they don't have that twitch off the edge, so they're going to have to probably develop a couple pass rush games to get guys home, and if they can't pass it off, that's going to be a huge problem for them. I know you saw it. How do you get things like that cleaned up when the defensive linemen are moving all over the place and the offensive line can't pass it off?
Yeah, it's a problem, and some of it can be dictated by protection. It's one of the issues. I know we make fun of slide protection a lot, but it makes it really tough to pass off games, twists, stunts, different blitz packages. When you're talking about 3-man games, it's just difficult to get those things turned one way and then back the other because your brain and your mind is just taking you one direction. So on the other side of the football, when you look at the Indiana defense, they are active. They have, I think some of the teams that people hadn't watched a lot of, their defensive lines will surprise some people. Indiana being one of those, SMU being another in this college football playoff. But can their aggressiveness get them in trouble in this game? It's one of my bigger concerns that, especially off the edges, they're pretty active over there. We've had similar conversations with teams like Georgia where, hey, man, they play you hard and they're aggressive and they attack you, but that can get them in trouble at times too. It's one of my concerns with Indiana is that Notre Dame can turn into a downhill run team. And if you're going to try to move on that, you better be exactly right, because if not, and that thing hits quick and you're not home, it's out the gate.
All that's very true. My big concern would probably be with Indiana. I think defensively, they're so vertical along the defensive line. They're probably as vertical a team as I've seen along. And I'm talking defensive tackle. When we say vertical, these defensive linemen just run straight ahead. Like they want to puncture the offensive line. Whatever it takes for them to puncture the offensive line, they're going to be there. But I think what makes them difficult to play against is that it might not always be the 4 guys that you anticipate. They're going to rush 4. Yeah, they'll have a few things. They'll have a few things where they can maybe, adjust and move and do some things like that. But really the main thing is like they have just a bunch of different ways to play 4 down fronts. You know what I mean? They can play it with a linebacker. They can play it with the defensive end that slides into defensive tackle, and the defensive tackle plays out to defensive end, and they'll switch those guys' responsibilities. So I think their whole goal is to puncture the offensive line. That's the goal. Like, they just want to take one guy, and they'll have that guy be the kamikaze pilot, and he's going to go try to blow up the offensive line. That's the way it goes. And then the next level is which guy's going to be where. And I think that's very difficult to play against. I think they're a pretty aggressive group, like you alluded to, but their linebackers do an amazing job. When the defensive line is that aggressive upfield, their linebackers have to do a great job with fits. And the 2 linebackers that they have played in this system now for 3 years. And they know the system and they know how to fit it. And they're really, really good. So I think just the way the whole thing blends together, their aggressiveness would normally concern me, but their linebackers make them right so often that it isn't as much of a problem as it would be for most teams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's going to be one of the fun matchups. I think this game, I think they're all going to heavily lean on the line of scrimmage, but this is more of a line of scrimmage game than maybe some may believe, just because that Notre Dame defensive line has real capabilities to be problematic, as does Indiana's, both through scheme and personnel. And as you stated, two quarterbacks that need time to operate, and if they don't get it, could be problematic. Maybe Indiana a little bit more than Notre Dame. So I'm excited for it, excited to see the matchup. Marcus Freeman on said podcast talking about the environment for the upcoming home playoff game.
What an environment it's going to be. Think about the history of Notre Dame football, the history of the historic games that have been played in Notre Dame Stadium, and to say we're a part of the first playoff game ever at Notre Dame Stadium is something that humbles you. You're grateful to be a part of it. I've challenged our crowd to truly impact the game. It can impact an offense in terms of, trying to make them go on a different cadence, have to go on silent count. Our crowd has to make sure they're impacting the game more than just enjoying the game, but it's something that we're all going to be grateful to be a part of.
No doubt. I think we're all grateful that we're going to have it, see it, and then some be a part of it, just because it's going to be so cool to have this 12-team playoff. It begins tomorrow night. GMAC will be on the call. He'll give us updates from talking to the coaches and being there in South Bend a little bit more tomorrow. And as it is cold there, it's going to be cold at a couple of these sites. Happy Valley, obviously going to be pretty chilly. Columbus, we know it's going to be cold there, but don't get caught in the cold. Call Train today. Train, obviously, the official sponsor right here at Jocks. They help us out with everything that we need. They can help you out with you need as well. Visit Train.com to find a Train dealer near you. And always remember, it's hard to stop a train. All right, we'll be back.
Cole, one thing real quick. And we can talk about it on the other side if you want, but there has been a lot of debate about the home field working against these teams. I really want to know where you stand on that. I think that the amount of people that have been mentioning that on multiple podcasts that I've listened to, Herb Street mentioned it on the Selection Show. The home field is going to actually be hard to play in. Do you align with that? Maybe we answer that question.
Yeah, we'll talk about it on the other side, because that's something that I feel like deserves the need to be discussed, and we'll do it next right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. 7:16 a.m. Thursday, December 19th, right here on Jocks 94.5. Listen online, jocksfm.com. Tell your home smart speaker to enable the Jock skill. What will some of these home environments be like for the home teams? We feel like we have an idea what they'll be like for the road teams, but could it be something that works against these groups? Curt Cignetti, Indiana head coach, feels like it's more of just another game for them.
I think to me and our guys, in my mind, it's just another game. I mean, you prepare for this one like you prepare for all of them. I think for our players, they're going to be excited to play and excited to prove something. I don't think anyone was happy with the way we came out of Ohio State. We didn't give ourselves a chance to be successful, giving up 14 points on the punt team and then having some of the communication breakdowns we had on pass pro. We didn't give ourselves a chance to play offense. But I think our guys have learned from that too and will be better in a hostile environment than we were on that particular day. And at the end of the day, it's just football. The game's going to be won or lost between the white lines, and I want them to go out there, fly around, have a little swag, and play the way we can play.
So that's Curt Cignetti, Indiana head coach, on those opportunities that they have, but also just what it's going to be like playing on the road. He says it's just a little bit of another game. By the way, quickly to the Twitter feed at Mac and Cube, Paul Witt tweets in the show, quote, Mishikawa, emoji, laughing face, crying. It's Mishawaka at Cole Kulik at Greg McElroy.
So, Mishawaka Flock of Flame.
That's it. That's the one.
That's it.
So we have been
I'll never
corrected.
forget it now.
We will never. How dare we mispronounce Mishawaka?
It's not you. It's me.
Well, I mean, I followed it up, so I didn't know any different. Let's just stay with that theme, though, here quickly. Steve Sarkisian, just on the advantages of being at home for this type of game.
What an awesome opportunity to host a playoff game in the inaugural 12-team playoff here at DKR Saturday at 3 o'clock against a really good Clemson team. If we want to go achieve what we're trying to achieve, which is go win a national championship, everybody's got to go to a whole nother level. And we have to do it for 4 straight weeks. And we have to do it one game at a time. And the first layer of that is a really good Clemson team on Saturday. I'm really pumped for our fans and Longhorn Nation that they get to experience this and that we get to have one more opportunity here at DKR with this team. We're going to need all their support.
All right, so that's Steve Sarkisian just on what it's going to be like having that home game for a college football playoff game. So you brought it up before the break, G-Mac, and I can recall Herbstreit on that selection show saying, this could actually work against Ohio State. I do understand the pressure part of it. I do understand the request and the more people around, and there's a lot more to deal with. But I'll still go with, 1, not having to deal with the noise, the hostility, but 2, just the familiarity of, what hotel you're going to, how long it's going to take to get to the stadium, where your locker is, how to get in and out of the tunnel. I mean, it's that familiarity, I think, always goes a long way when you're playing in this type of game because it just gives you less things to think about, less things to worry about. I know that your parents, your friends, your girlfriend's friends are all going to want tickets and all going to want to hear about the game and what's going on and what's different. And you probably have different media requests and you get gift bags, whatever. But being at home, I think still provides just a level of comfort and ease that is difficult to overcome when you're on the road.
I'm in the same spot. Like, I get the premise, and I understand that these are arguably the most pressure-packed games in the history of college football. You can make that case, given the fact that if you lose, your season is over. It's the first time we've ever in the FBS had a one-and-done format like this in a home setting. So I can understand the angles that have been created to accelerate that narrative. But I just have a hard time with it, though. I mean, I would still rather have the hostility being direct. And let's be real, I mean, the people that are going to spend the money are still going to be there to support the team. I don't care how hostile things are in the community against Ryan Day right now or on the message boards. The people that are going to shell out $300 to be in the building, they're going to be there to support the Ohio State Buckeyes. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it doesn't mean that they won't be frustrated if the team goes 3 and out. They might shower the offense with booze. That's possible too. But I still think it's going to be harder for the visiting team to play in some of those environments than it probably is going to be on the home team. So I don't know. I just feel like that's been a narrative, and I get it. Like, it's never been this much pressure before. But back in the day, you couldn't, if your goal was to win a national championship, you had pressure when you took the field. Like, if we would have lost to LSU at home, we would not have won the national championship in 2009. If we would have lost on the road at Auburn, we would not have won the national championship in 2009. So yeah, while our season didn't end on the field that night, our goals would end on the field that night if we were unsuccessful. So I don't get the sense that this is an elevated or heightened level of pressure compared to what it's been in the past. Do you?
No, I don't understand how it would be more difficult either. I mean, I previously trying to make sense of it. I was just trying to talk it out a little bit, but honestly, the more I think about it and I hear you talk about it, I just think it's ridiculous. How you can't say being at home for a game like this is not going to be a massive advantage. And I just don't think that the maybe extra pressure, possible extra pressure that comes with that is anything close to what the road teams should be dealing with. Specifically, when you're talking about Tennessee, and listen, I'm not talking about just being cold, but it will be colder than normal. And if there's going to be snow flurries and things of that nature, Tennessee you can post all the pictures you want to practice in snow. When was the last time they played in snow? Anybody on that team? I mean, maybe there's one or two of them that did, and they're but that's not something they're used to, and you can't really replicate it. We talk about replicating wet ball all the time, and you talk about wind. That's why wind's one of the most difficult things to deal with, because you're not getting giant fans going in the facility or at the practice field. Be like, all right, this is what the 22-mile-an-hour gusts are going to be like. You can't replicate it, and so it's going to be different. And then I haven't been to a game, at the Horseshoe. I haven't been to a game in South Bend, but I imagine Indiana and Tennessee are going to be dealing with a little bit of noise, and they're not going to be super comfortable distributing all the conversation that they want to at the line of scrimmage, regardless if it's one of the loudest stadiums in the country or one of the 20 loudest stadiums. It should be ramped up a little bit. It should be a little extra than what it has been. So I can't see where extra pressure from being at home or your coach being on the hot seat, whatever you want to say, can come anything close to what these road teams are going to be dealing with.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. The other thing I'd say, too, is I do think there's a little something to the playing in snow, familiarity with that. Like, we simply asked Kurt Signetti, said, hey, your thoughts on it's supposed to snow tomorrow night. They're saying 25 miles an hour or so, midway point of the game, 25 miles an hour, thereabouts. And it's supposed to snow. There's like a 40% chance of snow. And we asked him point blank, hey, dude, what do you think? What do you think about that? What does that do for your team? Does that alter your philosophy? Do you lean maybe more towards the run? What are your thoughts? And he said, well, to be honest with you, our quarterback's from Canada. So to tell you the truth, we hadn't really thought much about it. And you think about it, it's like, all right, well, that makes sense. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Curtis Rourke's seen worse, played in worse. And while they finished their season as Canadian high school football players in early November, late October, they still dealt with snow flurries from time to time. And it's not something that is going to faze him whatsoever. And I think he's really good. So he played in snow in the Purdue game. I don't think it's going to be a factor for that one in particular, but for the other teams, for SMU, God forbid it's snowing at noon Eastern in Happy Valley, they can't recreate that.
A little different.
It won't be snowing in Austin. Feel pretty good about that. But the environment that Clemson's going to be walking into, have they seen an environment that's as hostile as the one they're going to see at Texas? You've been there a couple times this year. How's Austin treating the visiting team right now?
It's a great environment. It fits right into the SEC. It's loud. I think we saw it can get pretty rowdy in the Georgia game, so we know what can happen there. Curtis Rourke, second best Canadian quarterback all time already, behind Jesse Palmer. Noah Brindise coming in third. Who was the MVP of the? Who was the Barracudas guy we had? John, Greg, you won't remember this. Who was the
Blue Barracudas?
The Birmingham Barracudas.
That was close,
you didn't live here. I'm surprised it didn't make it all the way to Texas and LA. People talking about it.
Didn't capture the.
He's like part of the TV crew now. I'm pretty sure. He does like CFL games. This guy Colin might know the answer. What was his name?
Billy Barracuda.
No. Somebody will tweet it in. He was
Brian Barracuda.
Matt Dunnigan. That's it. Matt Dunnigan. He was big time. He was like a big time
Matt
CFL
Dunnicuda?
guy. Matt Dunnigan. He was a big-time player, and he came down here and played for the Cudas right there at Legion Field. Don't act like he didn't have a jersey. I'm gonna put.
I don't think Fanatics had that one in stock.
I'm not putting Curtis Rourke ahead of Dunnigan just yet.
Mark Rippon?
He's from Canada?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Basically.
Guy won a Super Bowl. I'm putting him first.
He's too big not to be from Canada. Have you ever seen that guy's hands?
Yeah. Yeah. Mark Rippon, one of those old school 80s quarterbacks that we talk about, is just massive.
100%.
Massive human
Like just
being.
the biggest guy ever. Like bigger than any lineman today. And he was a quarterback. I'm trying to think of like other Canadian. There's definitely others. Canada's been a hotbed for quarterback play for a very long time, as you know.
It's just who doesn't know that? when I think quarterback recruiting, get above the border.
That's it. Have
Not
you spent
that
enough
accent
time up
made
there?
any sense whatsoever, by the way. I don't even know where I was going with that.
So for basically American football coach, we have a certain accent. What should our Canadian football coach sound like?
Pass it over there, oi. What do they do? What do they do in Canada? I don't
Was
know.
that Australian or was that Canadian?
It was a little
That's
bit.
our punter coach.
Yes, it was.
That was our punter coach right there. I think it's more like, this guy really knows how to get about the gridiron. He's got 3 downs to get it now here, eh? Something a lot about like that. I mean, he really goes about his business.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Third and about 6.
All right, now we're
a little
Irish.
Scottish in there. I am terrible at this.
Cole is very confused right now. He's United Nations of football coaches.
Hollywood,
a
not
lot of
calling anytime
representation.
soon. Yeah, my acting jobs are not coming out. Do you have something on Canadian quarterbacks, John? I got Kent Austin, Auburn quarterback coach.
Yeah, I'm looking for more, but
Ricky Ray with the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah.
That'd be a great game right there. Former 1980s NASCAR driver or Canadian quarterback? Ricky Ray, Kent Austin, Henry Burris, Chuck
Nate
Ely.
Burleson's from Canada.
This game works, by the way. Chuck Ely, 1980s NASCAR driver or
That
Canadian
is
quarterback?
definitely a driver.
That is a Canadian quarterback for
Okay,
the
dang it.
Toledo Rockets as
Dang
well.
it.
Yep,
Chase Claypool from Canada.
not quarterback.
Could he have played quarterback is the question.
Probably. Yeah.
Also, wow, okay. Who knew?
Case Cookus.
Who?
Case Cookus, Canadian quarterback.
Yeah, definitely not.
Tony
NASCAR driver.
Mandarich is from Canada.
Well, that's probably where he got his good stuff from up there.
You should see the picture of him. Oh, my trap.
He is. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. I want to say first offensive lineman on the cover of Sports Illustrated ever. Bit of a bust, bit of a draft bust. Didn't quite pan out to where people thought it was going to go.
Yeah, but how did it go in the combine?
Record setting, I would imagine. Had a little bit of chemical assistance there, just a smidge. Just a smidge.
You don't say.
Bathroom backpack?
Bathroom backpack guy.
bathroom suitcase, probably tackle box. Yeah,
Carry on.
It was
Looking
a
at
lot.
some of these,
Dude, but seriously, go look at the Sports Illustrated picture. Like he looks like he looks like an '80s wrestler. Like he has 8% body fat, maybe at like 320.
Really?
Oh, he was insane, man. But I mean, he was roided up, so he couldn't really move.
I'm thinking about doing a couple cycles this offseason.
Why not?
Getting all jacked up. I think it might be time.
Who doesn't want to be Tony Mandarich again? Probably.
Tony Mandarich is just ahead of his time. That was the problem. He was just too early. It was too obvious back then. Now is the time to cycle up.
No one will ever think that someone would actually do that. You'd be good.
No.
You're right there in the clear.
No.
Right there in the clear.
If all of
with
a sudden I showed up seriously and I walked into work like April 14th and all of a sudden I'm just yoked up, tight skinned, veined out,
back
traps
acne all over the
busting.
place.
Exactly, totally broken out all over my face, back, limping. Like all of a sudden I became bow-legged. What would your thoughts
Hip
be?
replacement.
Yeah, 100%. I have a knee brace on and I have one of those scooters, but I'm yoked.
It would only work if you came in with your straps from the gym on your wrists, like from just doing deadlifts.
No, I would only wear shirts that have chalk on them.
There you go.
That I think was a look in and of itself back in the day. Was no matter what, if you had chalk on your shirt, you were grinding. We didn't have the straps. Did you guys have the straps?
They wouldn't let us use them. No,
They wouldn't let us use them either.
Yeah.
Those are soft.
Rip your skin off your hand on the bar.
About to say, you want to use straps, son? You better break your hand.
This ain't
all right.
Venice Beach. All right, so
Bronco Nagurski's Canadian. I know he's
Really?
not quarterback, but yeah. Yeah.
and we named an American Football Award after him.
I know.
He's a good player, though.
Well, don't forget about LP Ledusker,
Listen, I'm not saying Canada
long
doesn't have
snapper
good
of the
football
Cowboys.
players, but yeah. Oh, well then, why didn't we lead off with him?
Well, he probably throws it better than anybody else from Canada. But it just happens to be between his legs. The guy's never missed he's 100% completion rate.
How do you think Canadians pronounce the city you're in right now?
Mishikawa, eh?
Mishikawa.
Mishawaka, eh?
Russell Terry tweets in, who's the better, him so big, Tony Mandrich or Steve Entman? Let me just tell you, I was obsessed with Steve Entman when I was in high school. I think I was a freshman in high school his last year at Washington. That dude was unstoppable. I put Greg on Steve Entman like 2 years ago. He didn't really know who he was. I'm like, dude, watch these highlights.
True.
And the guy's just a bowling ball through the line of scrimmage.
Well, it just so happened you put me on him probably 2 years ago, and then sure enough, Washington makes a run. So they're playing like all these highlights of Steve Entman. So it's like it's become a perpetual obsession. And then my kids got into Little Giants, and Steve Entman
He's in that.
is
That's
one
right.
of the pros that's in the Little Giants. So like Steve Entman was just the centerpiece of my world there for a little bit.
The best part
And
about
I still
Steve
think
Entman
Mandarich was bigger.
Yeah, Mandrich was bigger, but Steve Entman was also in that similar category. And then on top of that, he took the 80s shoulder pads to the extreme.
Yep.
On top of
Yeah.
being like 6'5", 310, 4% body fat. Just like a complete monster. But yeah, he was fun to watch. It was a different day of football back then. Just a different time. Guys cared more about their physiques back then.
What?
And apparently Greg will by April.
We'll see if Greg can get back to it. Gusty
I'm
Ghouls
about
can
to
get you.
cycle up.
They can get you back into a new house. Get you top dollar for your house. Call 205-542-1996 or Google Gusty Ghouls Group. You'll see over 835-star Google reviews. Gusty's going to invest thousands of dollars in the latest tools, social media networks, photographers, and more. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, radio, marketing is a crucial part of his success. Serve more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area, brokered by eXp Realty. Recognized both nationally and locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold. No reason for you not to call the Gusty Ghouls Group today, 205-542-1996, or visit GustyGhoulsGroup.com and start packing. All right, when we come back, we'll continue the conversation around this playoff. A couple of these matchups hadn't gotten enough time from us yet today. Texas, Clemson, how do we see that one going? We'll talk about it a little bit more next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, let's continue talking college football playoff. We haven't spent a ton of time talking Texas Clemson. When we broke it down by position yesterday, we did just a little bit. Texas advanced pretty deep in a couple of those facets already. So this team looks like it does have the makeup to make a playoff run. But Dabo Swinney discussing what he thinks about the Texas team that he will face.
Usually when you're a playoff team, you got excellent quarterback play. So no big shocker with that. They've got an outstanding quarterback. They're really good in the trenches on both sides. They've got explosive playmakers outside. They're built through the run game and the RPO game, the screen game, and shots. I mean, they do a good job of, how they put it all together offensively and defensively. I mean, they don't give up any points. So like 12 points a game. This is as good as you're going to see in the country. Big, stout up front, athletic linebackers, very skilled in the secondary. Thorpe Winter and number 7 out there at corner. Obviously, we know Coob and who he is. So it's a complete football team and a great challenge, but we're looking forward to it.
All right, so Dabo, complimentary of every position that Texas will field a player in this upcoming weekend when they face off against.
But
the
then again,
Longhorns.
what if he would have come out and said, "Yeah, this guy stinks. We'll attack him. We'll go after the linebacker here. We think this guy's a little stiff in his pass rush, so we think we could slow him down with a draw or two." What if he? I'm wanting coaches to come into their press conference, start pointing out weaknesses in the opponent at some point.
I think some
How
people
soon until we get it?
Some people try to bait him into those answers, and most coaches won't go for it. But it's and I guess now I see where Venables got it from. Because if you ask Venables a question about something another team does good, he'll literally give you every position and how great they are.
Rattle it off.
If you ask him about his team and who he likes, he'll literally go down the depth chart, not the depth chart, the roster. I mean, he was on set with us at media days, and I think he had like a 7.5 minute answer, and it was just all of his players, just all of them. And if Romo was up there with us, he goes, "Coach, I don't really have anything else to ask you. You named every kid on your team. Like, I think we're done here. Thanks for coming up."
I'm telling you, this backup long snapper, there's something about this kid, Gavin Johnson. There's something about this kid. I'm not sure what, but he's our backup long snapper. Like him, big fan of our third string punter. Johnny Appleseed, he does a good job for us. Our backup center runs the scouts, does a good job. Is he going that deep down the roster or no?
Y'all need those locker room guys, whether it's your backup snapper or whether it's your holder who just keeps things together, and you just try to.
Those guys, they don't get enough credit now. I'm gonna tell you now.
Special
those guys
teams
don't get
can be
enough
the
credit.
glue of your team sometimes, guys. So you just gotta make sure those guys are good locker room guys and motivational guys. And so that's my Venables. I don't know if it's anywhere accurate or not, but I feel like it's close.
That actually feels okay.
Yeah, that
one feels all right.
He's a lot more
No, that one
monotone
felt
in
okay.
person, I think, than people would. Because you see him, he's very fiery on the sideline, and he looks just intense. But when you meet with him, he's just like very calm, cool, collected, like almost like he's trying not to let anybody hear him. But always fun to visit with. I love visiting with Venables, and having him this year a couple of times I think was great for us because we didn't really know him. I feel like you think you know him, but you gotta really talk to him in person to get an idea what he's all about. But back to this game, this matchup. I am very concerned for the Clemson offensive line after watching a little bit more yesterday, Greg.
Oh boy.
I mean, listen, Georgia couldn't find anything inside against Texas. To think that Clemson will be able to, it's not going to be there. This will have to be a perimeter-heavy game plan for Cade Klubnik and company because they're not going between the tackles. And Georgia and a lot of folks would counter that and say, well, Georgia ran the ball late. It was all off tackle. And it was all running backs making good bounces and having good vision and good patience. But I just don't see Clemson having a lot in between the tackles here. And I don't know how much they're going to get off tackle either.
You say a lot. I say none. I don't think they're going to get anything between the tackles.
Yeah.
Maffa's been banged up. He's not running it the same. Doesn't mean he's not a good back. I like Maffa. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a good power back. I think he's a little limited from a speed standpoint, but you get him out on the edge against some smaller guys. Like, he can break some tackles. Like, I think he's a good player. Then I come with the big B word, but his shoulder's banged up, and he hasn't run the same, and they lost their backup who had some juice, so they're going to have to rely on a little bit of a bowling ball type of guy, Keith Adams. He's going to be their number 2, more than likely, and he's kind of a hammerhead. He's like 5'9", 220. He's one of those guys. Not great speed, not super crafty, but is hard to bring down. The other thing I would say is Cade Klubnik's legs are going to have to be big in this game too. I think a lot of the off-tackle stuff can hit. Texas has an aggressive group up front. I think some of their counter stuff can hit. I think if they get too aggressive on the pass rush, that can hit them. One of the best things that Clemson does is QB draw.
Yeah.
So I think that might be their best play. If you look at like a yards per play, I bet QB draw is up there, or at least in the mix. So I think you say it's got to be a perimeter game. I think it's got to be a perimeter exclusive game. Not a perimeter heavy game, a perimeter exclusive game. Because they try to play the punching bag between the tackles, Rocky hitting racks of ribs in the freezer, it ain't going to be good for them. No. It's going to have to be a speed game. It's going to have to be a weapon game, and they're going to have to take some shots downfield.
And it is an aggressive defense. I do think that some of the misdirection that Clemson may be able to employ could be of assistance. You go back to how Vandy moved the ball on them a little bit, not a ton, because when it came down to it and Vandy needed to grind away some yards in between the tackles, they couldn't really get that done or on the ground. So when they needed to run that clock, it just wasn't happening. But you can move the pocket a little bit. You can throw in some motion. You can throw in some different formations with movement, and I think you can find a way to steal some yards, but you're just not going to make a living on that for 4 quarters. But defensively, I will say there are some areas that Clemson can be problematic. They obviously have some guys up front with Peter Woods and Trey Williams that I think can be a little bit of an issue. I like how they attack, and based on how Texas has worked their protections, there's room to be able to get penetration, disruption, and maybe some pressure there. So I've been asking for Texas to sort of alter their protection all year, Greg. It hasn't happened yet. I don't know why it would happen now.
No, I think it's going to be tough sledding. And partly, have we seen anything for sure about everyone being back? I think everyone's healthy. I think everyone's good. Don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure everything should be good to go as far as everyone being back there. The other thing I would say about Clemson is I think they're going to have to do a really, really good job of helping out their tackles. I don't know if you feel the same way. I don't like the matchup whatsoever with their tackles working against the edges. That's going to need some help, and that's going to require Brenningstool, who's one of their best weapons, to probably, be involved in protection more than you'd want him to be involved in protection, because he's a guy that you can use a lot in the passing game. So that's going to be a problem. There's not a lot of ways, and I'm trying to find the sliver of optimism here for Clemson. I don't know how this game goes the distance. Barring mistakes made by Texas, which is always a real possibility, we know that. I think the only way they lose it is by screwing it up. And that could absolutely happen. But, man, that's the only way I see them coming up short.
There feels like there's a little bit of this Texas team, Greg, that does not have that killer instinct. That does not have that, we are going to step on your throat and take this from you. And yeah. I don't know how long that takes to get inside of one of your teams. I don't know if that's just the personality makeup. You played on teams that had that, so maybe you can help with that. But it feels like a little bit of, listen, I'll just say it point blank how it is. You and I have talked about this a lot on the show. Like, every team needs those kind of guys. It's before 8, so I'm trying not even to use like abbreviated words. Simple. Yeah, but it's like you need to have a couple of those dudes that nobody on the team messes with. And I don't know, there's just a part of me that feels like Texas doesn't have that edge. Otherwise, why do you let teams play with you that never should have? Why is Mississippi State a one-score game at the half? Why is Vanderbilt a one-score game in the fourth quarter? Like, you should put those teams away. And they don't feel like they've done that. And that's just it. To me, it feels like there's a little something missing from that team. That's why I don't have them winning the national title. But they have more talent than almost everybody they're going to see, including in this tournament.
They're a little too much sizzle. I get it. I totally get it. They're not really a lunch pail team. And it's hard. Like, you got to have that blue collar lunch pail mentality on occasion. Like, the only team that I've seen that didn't really feel like they had the blue collar at all that won the national championship was in 2019 LSU. Like, there was nothing about that team that was blue collar whatsoever. every other team that's won the national championship had a little bit of a capability of playing a blue-collar style game. Would you not agree to that?
The only thing I'd counter is like Thad Moss. I feel like he was kind of that guy for that LSU team, but not like the major role players. No.
I mean, they just had too much speed. They had too much talent. They had too much explosiveness. Like, there has to be a little bit of a lunch pail mentality to win a national championship. And I agree with you. I think Texas, and like we talked about with, gosh, for how many years about Mac Brown's tenure. Like, it's Austin. It's glamorous. It's a big city. It's, it's popping with tech money. It's, it's got everyone on the team is extremely well compensated. It's like there's no chip on the shoulder for any of them. It's been a cush life for everyone that plays for the Texas Longhorns. Like, you've had a blessed life to this point. You know what I mean? Like, you've probably been the biggest. You've probably been the strongest. You've probably been the fastest. You've been the most highly recruited. Now you're the most highly compensated. And now you're supposed to go and be rugged. It doesn't work that way.
The good news
it's like growing up. It's like growing up in, in Highland Park, Texas, or, or Mountain Brook, Alabama, or, I mean, even a place close to where we live, where I'm at right now. It's like growing up in Myers Park, North Carolina, or Myers Park in Cincinnati. It's like if you grow up in, like, with affluent abilities, like it's hard to do the little things. It's hard to be rugged, and I think that's part of what Texas deals with is they want to be rugged. And you've said this about Ohio State too. They want to be that way, but they're just not that way all the time.
Absolutely. All right. So we'll continue talking this game. Quickly tell you about your CBD store, the Trim by SunMed on the shelves now. If you're looking for an advantage in losing weight, they can help you there. I was in your CBD store yesterday, the one out on 280. Awesome help. They can get you anything that you need, any questions that you have. I was looking for some different dog treats as ours is having a little bit of skin issue right now. She gets these allergies every time it starts to get cold. They got a couple treats for her. We're going to see how those work. And if it works anything like her arthritis treats did, then it'll be great. They can help your pet out. Arthritis, anxiety, gut health, skin care. They have products for all of those. And for you as well. Better sleep, wake up feeling better in the mornings, and also for that appetite as well with the Trim by SunMed. Go by your CBD store today. See what they can do for you. See what products they have that can help better your life. 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver, Trustful just off 459. Tell them you heard about them right here on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. We'll get to our top 3 on the other side. I'm going to allow you to start thinking about it, and you can go ahead and tweet yours in. Who are the overall top 3 players in this tournament? And we're not talking NFL draft. Who are the top 3 players that you would want on your team that are in this tournament if you were looking to make a national championship run? We'll give you ours next on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. All right, talking college football playoff, we get to our top three at this time each and every day. I think if I normally did this, it would be really easy. And I might have to push this to the other side because it's going to take some thought. And I think a lot of people are going to look at this and say, oh, it would be this guy, this guy, this guy. Because I'm not, number one, I'm not sure that I'm going to have a quarterback in my top three.
Wow.
And number two, I also feel like I am probably going to have a couple guys that not a lot of other people are going to have. I might have one. I'm still debating on who's going to be in my top three that I don't think anybody else would even consider having. Is probably people are probably going to be mad because there's a lot of ways to look at this.
No, this is not an MVP, correct?
Yes.
Not an MVP, just the best players, because I think sometimes we get a little bit confused. Most valuable is different than best.
All right, so we've already got Always Talking Ball podcast coming in. You're welcome for the free plug. He goes Dylan Gabriel, most trusted quarterback in college football. Abdul Carter, true difference maker on defense. Jeremiah Love, if Notre Dame's going to advance, he's going to be a huge part. And we have shared our passion for Jeremiah Love on this show before. He is an absolute special back. But Notre Dame has three players that average 7 yards a carry, if you don't include sack yardage on Riley Leonard and what he's done this year as a runner. I have no problem with those three, and those three might not be, none of those could potentially be on my list. I'm talking about to help you win games in this tournament. Who are those best three players right there? So we'll push it to the other side. We'll have the conversation there. Greg, tell our listeners about B-Dry first.
B-Dry's been serving this community for more than 60 years, and they continue to back things up with a life of the structure warranty. You'll really appreciate, I think, what you get when you deal with B-Dry. They're the very best. I have had terrific experience with them. I know you guys will have a great experience with them as well. They're the largest waterproofing company in the country and the only company that can stop all 5 ways that water can enter your foundation. So go and check them out today by going to bdryalabama.com. You get 12 months interest-free and no payments for 12 months. So you get the job finished and you still have some cash on hand for the first of the year coming up here in just a week or two. Call them today, 942-1976, or go to bdryalabama.com.
All right, we will have that discussion on the other side. Who would your top three players you would take from teams in this playoff to help you go win this playoff? Not NFL, not draft, not the next 3 years. So you're not building on a quarterback for the rest of his career. It's not none of that. Not most talent, but guys who you think could go the furthest in helping you win this year's college football playoff. We'll give you hours. We'll take your calls, 800-239-9569. More tweets into the show, at Mac and Cube. You can text yours in, 205-834-9450. And we'll be back with more McElroy and Kubelik in the morning next right here on Jocks 94.5. 8 o'clock hour number 2, Thursday, December 19th, Jocks 94.5, 800-239-9569. You want to get in. Top 3 players that you would take from the playoff field to just go win this tournament. Not next year college football, not win the Heisman, not NFL draft, not building their career. Who would those players be for you? You can text into the show 205-834-9450. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. K Ham tweets in draft players from playoff teams only, starters, and see who wins head to head.
What?
I guess
I'm not following.
you and I draft starters from said teams, and then when we get to the end, see whose team is better. I think that's what he's trying to say there. Which could be an interesting practice if it was back and forth.
We could do that.
Yeah, and we could take those guys. This is going to be, I think, very different for very different listeners and for us also. Like I think my list is going to be a lot different than people think. First, I'll just say this: there's not an offensive lineman in this group that I feel like I would utilize one of these 3 picks for. And I mean, having a left tackle would be amazing. Kelvin Banks, I think, would probably be the guy that you would take first.
How mad is the Joe Moore committee?
Do I think that like a Cooper Mays could be really valuable?
Right.
I don't know if it'd be worth one of these picks. I don't know if it would make that much difference in this tournament. Like there's not a Chris Samuels or Quentin Nelson in this group. There just isn't. I will say this: I'm falling in love with Arizona State center. I think he's the widest center in college football. That was with a D, by the way. Wide.
Widest.
He's just huge. He's listed at 312, but I don't believe it. 6'2", 312. I think he's
under on 6'2".
I think he's 6 feet, 330.
Oof.
But he can move pretty good.
Under on 6'2".
He's a good player. He's fun to watch. All right. I can't wait for the blowback on this one. G-Man, I don't know if Greg's going to hate my list or love my list because it could go a couple different ways. And this is going to be a little bit of recency bias. Number 1 for me is Ashton Genty. And I know people say, oh, it's just a running back. And, oh, the position's devalued. This dude's different. This gives me a known security blanket going into any game that if it goes to hell in a handbasket, we can hand it to him 25 times. And probably a lot of good things are going to happen. Whether we block well, whether the box is stacked, it doesn't matter. Good things are going to take place when we get the ball into his hands, and it's also going to be really easy to get the ball in his hands. Number 2 would be Tyler Warren. I don't think there's another player like him in college football, much less in this tournament. We've all seen the value of tight ends. Move them around. By the way, you watch this guy lead block, and he's putting people on their rear ends. He can throw the ball. He can snap the ball. He can catch the ball. He can run with the ball. He can block for you in different areas. And you can move him around, and people have to pay attention to him. He's a matchup nightmare. I don't know how you identify him as a D coordinator. That would be one of my first questions when I talk to Tim Banks. What are you calling him? How are you IDing him as far as personnel is concerned? And then number 3, again, heavy recency biased, Kobe Wilson, linebacker, SMU. I just want dudes like this on my team. It took me, I'll be honest, I texted Rhett and said, man, I love 24. And I thought he was a nickel for like the first 7 series that I watched him. Because that's how he flies around and makes plays. But
both their linebackers.
He's like 211 pounds, he looks like. He bounces off blocks. He knifes through the offensive line. He's great in coverage. He's always, and I mean always, near the football. Is he the best linebacker in this tournament? No. But I just watch him, and I think to myself, I want guys like that on my football team. So that would be number 3 for me.
I'm great with that. I got no problem whatsoever with your list. I actually kind of like it. I'm a little surprised because I'm kind of more amazed with the line of scrimmage in this tournament.
But there's not like a Joe Alt or a Quinnen Williams. I don't really feel like there's.
It's not so much the Joe Alt, Quinnen Williams. I get it, but like a James Pierce, a Howard Cross.
James Pierce was heavy on my mind. I will say that. He was heavy on, like Jalen Walker was heavy on my mind because Jalen Walker's the guy you can do a ton of stuff with, man. And it's like if he gets going, it's really hard to stop him.
Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't go with Arch Manning. I mean, I feel like if the way I listen to some of these podcasts preparing, it's like, why are we even talking about Quinn?
Well, listen, I went with Arch with my SEC championship game X factor, and if he is not in for them to fake that fourth down conversion, then I don't think they're even in the game late. So I feel like I won that round.
Easy blowout.
Yes. I think it's a really good question. But I'm going to go, I'll just take the 3 that you took off the table.
Okay, I like that.
You know, let's keep it open here for a second, because since you've already taken those 3, I will go ahead and select James Pierce. I just think a dynamic edge rusher with twitch is a huge problem, and I don't feel like he had his best stuff early in the season, and has gotten better as the season's gone along, gone more impactful at times as the season's progressed. And I feel like the bigger the moment, the more impactful he's been. His best game was against Alabama, arguably. I mean, you could make that case, and that was probably their biggest game of the year, their biggest win of the year, at least, at the very least. So I think he would make some sense. Another guy that I just absolutely love, since you're taking Genty and Warren, I'll take Cam Skattebo from Arizona State. I think he's a really, really good football player. I think he's extremely difficult to bring down. I think he does a really good job in space. I think he has a great feel and understanding for the passing game, and he's a good option runner. He knows how to create leverage. I think he can run at angles. He can run with power between the tackles. He's got decent vision. I don't think he's got elite vision, but he's got decent vision. I just think he's a really good football player. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I think he is, Greg? He reminds me of the conversation we had about DJ Lagway earlier this year, where it just feels like everybody else plays better when he's on the field. And part of that is their doing when you have guys like that, but part of it is just, I think, certain guys are just good at football. Other guys are polarizing and good at football. And I think when you're good and you're polarizing, everyone wants to play like you, not with you. And so I think Skattebo gets his guys to want to play like him, not necessarily play with him. And he's just one of those guys. It's kind of rare because they don't always sort of invoke the locker room that way when you're that good and that talented. But I think he's both. And it's just, I feel like the guys played. Here's the crazy part. I love the Kyson Brown kid that was in earlier in the year when Skattebo missed a couple games. I think he's an awesome running back. But
he's really good.
They haven't needed him as much.
They're different with Skattebo out there.
Yes,
for sure.
Totally.
But I don't disagree with you. Like, I think they have some depth at some certain positions. They have more at receiver than I anticipated. Like, Arizona State's pretty good. I think they'll get destroyed by Texas. I think it's a bad matchup for them. Assuming Texas gets through Clemson this week, I think Texas is in a really good position to get to the semis. And then lastly, like, I'm going to avoid taking the quarterback because I would probably have a pretty difficult decision to make between Dylan Gabriel and Curtis Rourke. Those are my two favorites probably in the field right now. Curtis Rourke is legit, man. Like, I am a big, big fan. I know we've talked about it this week. Like, we're going to fast forward. This guy's going to have a Kirk Cousins career in the NFL, and everyone's going to be like, how'd we miss this? And he throws a super catchable ball. He's accurate. He might go to a terrible situation and wash out, but he's a good player. So I'm going to avoid the quarterback for now. Golly, I want to go with Jeremiah Smith. Just have a hard time getting there. He's so good. He's so dynamic. He's such a huge question mark and such a huge person to be concerned with. So I'd love to go there, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to resist the urge. I'm going to take Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame, running back. And Jadarian Price is right there. You know, his backup is the real deal. But, man, I think Jeremiah Love is just when the juice is loose, and he's a little banged up. I mean, he's got that knee injury off the game against SC. So here's hoping that he's at 100% when they tee it up tomorrow. I don't know if he will be or not. I know he's going to play. I just don't know if there's anything limiting. But Jeremiah Love's one of my favorite players in the country. I think he's super dynamic. He's great on the screen game. I think he's really, really solid in protection. He protects his tail off when they ask him to. So I'll go Jeremiah Love. So my three are James Pierce, Cam Skattebo, and Jeremiah Love.
Love it. All right, John, you're finally up.
The three I had originally were Ashton Jantes, Cam Skattebo, and Tyler Warren. Those are the three that I wrote down. But going off Greg's exercise of if basically the ones that have been taken are already have been drafted and I can't use them, number one for me is Abdul Carter. I mean, he leads that Indy line defense. I think he had 20 tackles for loss, 10 sacks. I think he pressured QB 49 times and run stop 14. This is a guy that can disrupt not only what the O-line is doing, but what the offense is planning on doing. And so most of the guys, I have here really are game records on the other side of the ball, and Abdul Carter really, really stood out to me. Number 2 from Texas, Anthony Hill.
It's a good one. I thought about him.
I mean, he 90 tackles, 16 of them for loss, and 4 forced fumbles. Again, just like Carter, he can single-handedly almost disrupt what the defense is doing, but what the offense is doing. But to be able to do it from the edge, from the middle, from wherever, having the ability to have that mobility around, you've got to account for him, and that's why he's on this list. And number 3, honestly, all 3 of them could have been number 1. Just read them out in alphabetical order, I guess. Jalen Walker, Buckets Award winner, 57 tackles, 10.5 for loss, 6.5 sacks. I mean, on a stout Georgia defense, this was a guy that made a lot of things happen. And I think he's going to be the reason whomever Georgia ends up facing, I think he'll be a major reason why that team from Indiana struggles offensively.
I'll tell you, it almost makes this playoff more cool to think about, that there's not just 3 that everybody goes with across the board. I think it makes it a little bit more interesting that there's not just, okay, it's got to be this guy, this guy, this guy, and there are different thought processes as far as who people think it should be, and multiple players out there that could change some of these games. And that's why upsets happen. That's how games go ways that maybe we don't always think that they will, or certain guys come in and have that kind of an impact that we didn't see coming. And we got some great feedback coming in from some of the listeners. I want to get to that in just a few minutes. First, G-Mac, tell our listeners about Bromberg's and what they have this holiday season.
Well, Bromberg's is great, man. I love so much when I go in there. My wife has already picked out a couple things that she wants down the road. I go and visit with one of the amazing salespeople, and they usually have a pretty good feel for what Meredith likes, and just made it easier on me, that's for sure. Really appreciate what they've done for me. I've really grown accustomed to just when I need a present, I'm just going straight to Bromberg's. I know you guys will understand what I mean the second you walk in the door. It's a great, great place, and they take great care of you. That's for sure. Go and check them out today. You'll be glad you did. In one of their 2 locations in Mountain Brook Village or the Summit, you can also shop online, have it delivered right to your driveway at what am I doing? Wrong read. I apologize. You can also shop online at brombergs.com.
All right, 800-239-9569. 205-834-9450 if you want to text into the show. Tweet it at Mac and Cube. A lot of you coming in with your top 3 players. There's some good ones, some that we have not mentioned, some that maybe we will ask how and why. We'll do that right after this on McElroy and Cube like in the morning. top 3 players in this college football tournament. Who would that be? We got some other college football news that we need to get to a little bit later this hour. We'll do that as things progress. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. Thursday, December 19th, 8:17 a.m. on Jocks 94.5, hour number 2 underway. We gave you our top 3 players that we would take from this college football playoff. Who would those be for you? And not necessarily building for the future of your program or building for your future in the National Football League. We want to know who those would be just to go win this tournament. So Jolly tweets in, at Mac and Cube, 1, Sampson, 2, yours, 3, Stockton, keeping it SEC. Dylan Sampson absolutely is a guy that should be mentioned in anybody's top 3. I have no issue with him. Quinn Ewers, he's been dinged up. 2, I do think that he's locked in on a couple receivers at different points in times here late in the season. It's got him in a little bit of trouble. But as far as managing running that offense, he does it extremely well. Gunnar Stockton, I don't know if he would be in a lot of my top 3s. That would be tough. Matt Nunley tweets in, Dylan Gabriel.
How we can, on the body of work, how do we have him in the top 3 right now?
I said keeping it SEC, he said.
Yeah, but there's 15 other guys from the SEC that have significantly impacted their team more than him. I'm not saying he won't be great. Maybe he's great this weekend, but it's not like we know that.
No, it's fair. Matt Nunley tweets in, and this is another one. He has one on his list that I considered that I think I would have put in for some of the others that I had on my list. Dylan Gabriel, Ashton Genty, and Caleb Downs. Would Caleb Downs be close for you, G-Mac?
I think Caleb Downs is a great player. I just wonder, safety. Safety's just not a position that has a crazy huge impact. I don't know how you feel about it. Like, it's an important position. Every position's important, but some are more important than others. You know what I mean? And I can eliminate his contributions by keeping the ball away from now. If they use him the way they did at times against Indiana, and they had him kind of as a pseudo 9 yards off the ball linebacker hybrid safety type, then okay, I could see him being a little bit more impactful. But is he going to be spying Nico Iamaleava the whole time? Like, what is his role? So until I know his role, it's hard for me to envision him being a top 3 player for me in this tournament.
That's fair. Tripp tweets into the show, Jalen Walker, Arch Manning, best quarterback in the playoff by margin, and Mykel Williams, Georgia, can wreck your O-line's day. The thing with Mykel Williams is it's been a little bit spotty.
About to say, which Mykel Williams you getting?
Yeah, and I mean, we talked about Jalen Walker. That would be possible. Arch, best quarterback in this tournament.
Come on.
I don't know if I'm ready to put him there just yet. I don't know if he's that high on the list. E. Robinson tweets in, Genty, Banks, Abdul Carter. I mean, I think if we're drafting offensive lineman, Kelvin Banks is up there. By the way, is he playing? He didn't play in the SEC championship game. So it's not just a given that he's going to be out there and he's going to go. I imagine he will. I would like to think that he will. But like I said, I think there may be more valuable centers in this tournament than there are tackles in this tournament. The right tackles had some issues at Texas. I don't think Clemson's tackles are special. I think Tennessee's tackles are fun to watch. They're not the best in pass pro, but they definitely get after you. The Penn State left tackle, solid. Right tackle's a bit of a liability. Notre Dame's tackles.
He's their backup. They lost their starter.
Yeah, Notre Dame's tackles are not what they have been in the past. Georgia's tackles have not been great in pass protection. I think Oregon's tackles are solid. They get after you, but it's not Penei Sewell. And Arizona State's tackles
I've heard differently. Yeah. I've heard that Oregon's tackles are better than Penei Sewell.
Well, they would be wrong. Whoever told you that. So
Jeff Schwartz.
No, he's not saying that. He knows better than that.
2 top 50 picks.
That might tell you something about this tackle draft more than it does them individually. They're fine players. They're good players, but I don't think that they're necessarily game changers. Guys who, if you insert them into your offensive line, all of a sudden you're different. That's what I don't see with them.
I'm trying to think if there's an offensive lineman. I'm talking kind of across the board. Is there a guard in the tournament that's like, oh yeah? I mean, I'm not saying Quentin Nelson level good.
No.
I don't think there is. I don't think that there's. I mean, okay, I love Cooper Mays. I think he does a lot of good things.
He's just super valuable
Tennessee.
for them.
Correct. I'm not saying I'm not sitting there thinking if I'm at the top of the draft board and the draft into the top 10, I can get Cooper Mays and lock down that position and get the next Jason Kelsey. You know, I don't know if there is an offensive lineman that's that impactful. And I think part of it's, it's little styles. Are there styles of these teams? Are they going to allow the offensive line to really do the damage that would be necessary to involve one of these three teams in the top 5 or in the top 3? No. I don't know. Who is the best offensive lineman in the entire tournament? Seriously.
It's probably, if you're talking upside and talent and ability, it's probably.
No, I don't care.
It's probably Kelvin Banks.
I don't care about that. Yes, I agree, but I don't care about draft. I'm talking about, we don't even know if he has one leg at the moment. I don't know if his ankle is going to be good enough to go. So if you get one guy in this tournament, based on everything we know, I'm not talking about upside, I'm not talking about draft potential, I'm talking about one guy in this tournament who you want.
It's probably Cooper Mays, honestly.
That's for that team. I think it's from a valuable if we're saying MVP, I can get on board. But I don't know if from a talent standpoint he's there.
He's not as talented as the other guys, but I know he's going to be able to handle what I need him to handle, including snapping the football. So I think for any team, he would probably give you some value. Like, just keep in mind, Ohio State, go watch the Michigan film. There were multiple snaps that there were issues with. Like, I could probably make the same argument for Jake Majors, but I don't think he's anywhere near the most talented offensive lineman in this deal. But I mean, some of the offensive linemen that are the most talented don't always play the best either. I mean, look at Georgia's kids. You don't think they're more talented? Of course they are, but they just haven't necessarily played that way. I mean, I'll tell you this: when you watch Cam Williams play good football, I think he might be right tackle for Texas. He might be more talented than Kelvin Banks, but he also has a lot of flaws technically and fundamentally. So I think your safest bet there might be Cooper Mays.
Yeah. Golly, there's just not that many. I mean, I really think about it too. Like, I like the right tackle at Notre Dame. I think he's a good player. I'm blanking on his name. Wagner. Like, I think he's a good player. But I also think I'm falling a little victim to, okay, here's what tackles at Notre Dame are supposed to look like. And I think back to Joe Alt.
100%.
You know what I mean? So it's a little bit, if Joe Alt never existed, I'd probably think more of Wagner, the right tackle. Man, it's tough. I'm not going to lie. It's really tough. I think that's why I think tight ends in this tournament, if we're going most underrated position group in this tournament, and this can be a conversation that we have tomorrow, we can have this throughout. I think the tight ends in this field of 12, because of the uncertainties we have at tackle and because of how good many of these teams' pass rushes are, I think tight ends are going to be of significant importance helping these tackles out. We've seen it multiple times from SMU. We've seen it multiple times from Penn State. We've seen it from Ohio State. We've seen it from Tennessee, how important the tight ends are there. We've seen it from Clemson when their tackles have been banged up a little bit. Like, we have seen this 15 different times from all these teams. How often that they're using the tackles to help, or the tight ends to help their tackles. Shoot, Georgia's had to use tight ends to help their tackles this year.
A lot.
Think about how backwards that is. It's Georgia. So I think the most underrated position potentially in the field right now is tight end depth and versatility and a willingness to involve yourself in the protection, because there are a bunch of defensive ends that can take over the game in the 12 teams remaining.
John Hill goes Jalen Carter, Dylan Sampson, Caleb Klubnik.
Brother.
And Garth Garrels tweets in, Tate Ratledge is a future pro guard. 100%. I agree. But I don't still think he's even near 100% right now. He actually had a pretty good game in the SEC championship game, but you can tell he's not able to push off and drive the way that he needs to. And speaking to the Georgia issues, again, I mean, you look at Xavier Truss, and it's like God made an offensive tackle. Like physically, when you look at him and the arm length and the body and the capabilities, you're like, wow, that guy should be making $22 million a year as one of the best left tackles in the NFL. But on the other side, we thought Ernest Green was going to be one of the best tackles returning in college football this year, and Monroe Freeling's had to be in there in and out. So he hasn't even locked down his own position over there. It's been a weird year for the Georgia tackles, and it doesn't feel like there is that super dynamic offensive lineman in this field of teams that are going to be playing. But as you stated, that tight end position, I mean, you've mentioned it with Clemson, Gunnar Helm at Texas, Tennessee, and how those three tight ends have been helping that group. G. Scott at Ohio State is going to have to help a little bit. We've talked about Tyler Warren at Penn State, what he's going to have to do. Notre Dame is going to have some of those tight ends. Arizona State's got a glorified offensive lineman playing tight end. And he'll get out there and bust some guys around, and he'll probably have to help a little bit because their protection has not been solid the entire season. We talked about all of Georgia's tight ends and what they're going to have to do. It's a great point, and I might agree with you that I think it's the most underrated position in this tournament just because of what they're going to have to do, catching the football, maybe helping get the run game going a little bit, being there for some misdirection / gadget plays, and then obviously helping in protection also. And then you think about if these games, Greg, in where you are and in Columbus and in Happy Valley State College turn into bad weather games, those guys become that much more important because you're not going way down the field very much. So intermediate passing game and then helping you run as well.
But think about how many guys, how many players in the field or how many teams in the field have an edge rusher that can take over the game. It's as much about the liabilities that we see at tackle kind of scattered throughout, but it's also equally about how many teams have a guy at the end of the line of scrimmage that can kill you. I mean, you look at Boise State. You wouldn't think Boise's going to have a guy at the edge that can give you a lot of problems. Number 5 can give you problems. Like Virgin Morton, he can give you problems. TJ Parker at Clemson, number 3. He can give you problems. Everybody knows about Abdul Carter at Penn State. Number 11, he can give you a lot of problems. Oregon, Mateo Uiagalelei, how they've now started to use him a little bit more off the edge, along with 3 or 4 other guys that can give you some issues off the edge. You have the other guy for Boise State, 91, that is a handful too. I mean, like every team, Indiana, number 6, Mikhail Kamara, like huge problem. I mean, every team's got an edge guy that's like a handful. I mean, big-time handful. Colin Simmons, number 11 at Texas. I mean, the list goes on. And Jordan Birch, number 1 at Oregon. The list goes on and on. So I think it's as much about helping the tackles. When we haven't even mentioned James Pierce. Like, think about how many guys I just listed that are edge defenders that are a big issue in this field of 12. And how often we just went down the list of tackles like, I don't know. He worries me. I don't know about him. That's a problem there. I mean, if there's one thing I've learned in this tournament, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to apply to next year, the year after that, or the year after that, if you don't have an individual edge rusher, you got some issues. Like, all these teams that are here have a few things. One, they have a pretty dang consistent quarterback for the most part. If they don't have a consistent quarterback, they have a run game that's super dynamic, and they also have an elite pressure package with what they have on the edges defensively. Those are the 3 things that might be most important this year in trying to win football games in college football.
There's no doubt. It's going to be an awesome weekend. It's going to be a great weekend of football. I mean, you think about just Saturday after Friday, we get it going. You've got SMU and Penn State. Then the Texans are at the Chiefs. You got Clemson at Texas, Steelers at Ravens, and then Tennessee at Ohio State. That's a day right there. I mean, that is a football day in and of itself. So enjoy it, soak it in, and get ready for it. And we're going to continue to do that. But with a little bit of college football news on the other side, we might have some guys who are potentially trying to come back for more. If you're trying to get more energy, if you're trying to get more sleep, Game Day Men's Health can help you out today. A lot of times you might lack energy, sleep, maybe you feel on edge. It all could be the effects of low testosterone. Game Day Men's Health wants to help you with that. Here's how they're going to do it. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com today. Schedule a free consultation. It's of no cost to you. And then you get the PSA test, the testosterone test. Once again, no cost to you. Then Game Day Men's Health is going to be able to tell you where you are and most likely why some of the issues you have are taking place. They can help you with a lot of different things. They have a lot of different programs, and you can save 10% on any of those programs by mentioning Cube when you walk in the front door. Locker room environment, great people, low stress atmosphere, not going to try to push you into things that you don't need. And just to show you that right out of the gate, the minimal upfront cost for the programs they offer differentiate them from everybody else around town. No charge consultation with the free testosterone and PSA test when you walk in the door at Game Day Men's Health. Book that free consultation today at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com and tell them you heard about us right here on Mac and Cube in the morning. Some college football news, portal and players coming back next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Some college football news that we need to get to because we've put it off with college football playoff discussion the majority of the show today. Transfer portal. We will start there. It's obviously busy. It's been busy, stayed busy, really, since it opened over a week ago. Utah wide receiver Micah Pittman is in. Florida State, other schools, and he is a big-time wideout and potentially could make a difference somewhere. Alabama wide receiver Caleb Odom has committed to Ole Miss. Big target. A lot of folks there think he has a lot of capabilities, and now he'll play in Lane Kiffin's offense. Missouri gets ULM running back Ahmad Hardy. Highly sought after, very productive year. We had Brian Vincent on. He raved about him on the show, and he'll be now playing in that stretch zone system, which he ran there at ULM at Missouri with Kirby Moore and Eli Drinkwitz. Oklahoma gets Washington State quarterback John Mateer. This was, a lot of people say this is a big get, not only for Oklahoma, but really just nationally if you're talking about quarterbacks and what you have to offer, what they're going to be able to be. A lot of people think this changes the game for Oklahoma. Mateer, 3,139 yards passing last year, 29 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He also ran for 826 yards and 15 rushing touchdowns. So you'll have a dual threat. Those capabilities will be there in Oklahoma's new offense. Colorado gets a commitment from Liberty quarterback Caden Salter, another very productive quarterback that has gone out and put up numbers, and we'll see if he can continue to do that in the Big 12 with Coach Prime. Ohio State gets a commitment from Minnesota offensive tackle Phillip Daniels. Vanderbilt gets a commitment from Tennessee quarterback Jordan Matthews. Unfortunately for him, he will most likely never be the best Jordan Matthews to play at Vanderbilt. Syracuse gets a quarterback commitment from LSU's Ricky Collins. They loved him at LSU. I'll just tell you that. And I've watched him throw. He's got a big arm, throws a beautiful ball. He's a big, good-looking kid. That could potentially be one that is massive for Syracuse down the road because he was a big-time quarterback commit. Ole Miss's running back Matt Jones also in the portal. And Florida State edge Patrick Payton's in the portal. Big-time player. Has had spurts of being really good in that offense. So that's one that could end up being huge for somebody else as he enters the portal. Some bad news for Alabama in the ReliaQuest Bowl. Malachi Moore is going to be injured and not going to be able to go. Head coach Kalen DeBoer on his availability.
And just got to the point where he wasn't going to be able to play, so just kind of putting that out there. He's having surgery actually today. He wanted to do everything he could to get out there, was trying to find every, trying to wait it out to see if it could possibly be something he's able to participate in. But just, probably the biggest thing I'll say is he just grinded through the year with it. It's not something recent. It's been something that's been ongoing, and maybe some of you kind of saw or felt something like that, but just hats off to, how much he loves this place, how bad he wanted to be out there on the field each and every Saturday, and even how bad he wanted to be out there with these guys and finish it off in his career for the bowl game.
Bad news, one of your better players is not going to be available. Good news is you're playing Michigan, and their passing game hardly has a pulse. So it might not be that much of an issue, but Malachi's been great against the run too. ReliaQuest Bowl, Tuesday, December 31st, Raymond James Stadium, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Kalen DeBoer also on using Mbakwe maybe in some different ways.
We certainly are short there at wide receiver with injuries and some guys that entered the portal. It's always been that way where we've been open to what he can bring to the table. I think as a freshman coming in, you're really trying to focus on doing one thing well, this is certainly a time where we can look into that, figure that out, So he's, again, super talented. I think the one thing that sticks out with me when I talk about, you asked about punt return, or reference that, and I did too. A lot of guys, especially defensive guys, I know for me, the trust of putting the ball in their hands on a punt return, which is a lot of people running at you, making people miss, a lot of people converging on you all at once. Never really have felt, concerned about his ball security, right? Let's all knock on wood together on that one, okay? But he just got that trust factor that you have with him, and it goes back to his high school days. So you're always looking at guys that can help you in the football field one way or another.
So Coach Kalen DeBoer talking about some of the wide receiver depth. Alabama currently trending for Miami wide receiver Isaiah Horton, who has hit the portal. They get a commitment from Utah cornerback Cam Calhoun, 6 foot 180, 21 tackles this year, had an interception, good player, physical corner that could come in and help that Alabama defense. Auburn gets commitments from LSU linebacker Xavier Atkins and Western Kentucky defensive lineman Dallas Walker. Walker played down inside, played a little bit of nose guard for Western Kentucky. Physical kid, got good hands. Not super twitchy and quick, going to be penetrator disruptor, but can hold the point at the line of scrimmage fairly well, plays hard. South Carolina gets commitments from Texas A&M defensive lineman Gabriel Brownlow, Dindy, and Grambling linebacker Andrew Jones, who had 111 tackles last year. They also get a commitment from Kentucky tight end Jordan Dingle. Dingle, a good, versatile tight end. He can play in line, not a liability in the blocking game. Now, he's not a dynamic runner, not a fast runner, not twitchy, not your mismatched guy you're going to flex out, but a good enough route runner with solid hands that you can rely on him. And somebody I think that you can line up there tight end, and he can be able to help you in multiple ways. So those are just some of the portal gets. I mean, there's a whole nother list of them that I haven't even gotten to. But just keep in mind, when you retire and the paycheck stop, how are you going to pay your bills? Do you have a plan that will help you accomplish that regardless of market changes or an unstable economy? If not, you'd like to get one, get in touch with Tad and Tony Hill at Freedom Financial. Go now to askfreedomfinancial.com to find out how you can protect your retirement. That's askfreedomfinancial.com, askfreedomfinancial.com. This is a paid placement for investment advisory services made available through AE Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. We will continue the college football conversation a little bit later. Wimp Sanderson coming up at 9. We'll get the Rubik's Cube for these playoff games after that. One note that we have not hit yet. Diego Pavia has more eligibility.
Yay?
I think it was great for Vanderbilt. Pavia was granted an injunction allowing for added eligibility. He sued the NCAA in November, claiming the organization's rule that counts a player's time in junior college towards his overall years of eligibility is a violation of antitrust law. This is a massive fear fail on the NCAA's part, in my opinion. Judge William Campbell's decision Wednesday is not a final ruling, but prevents the NCAA from keeping Pavia out of college football until the case is resolved. So as of now, he is eligible. He tweeted, "My lawyers are legit." !
They broke precedent. So
There's only he would. Quote, "We're not saying the NCAA can't have eligibility requirements," said Ryan Downton, Pavia's attorney. "But a junior college season shouldn't be the equivalent of an NCAA season where the junior college season has no meaningful opportunities to earn NIL." Why is that the NCAA's fault?
Yeah, that doesn't feel like it's their concern.
No television exposure. They take other athletes who are playing somewhere outside of high school and don't hold those seasons against them. Where and who?
Last Chance U, I guess.
Who is playing football somewhere that has not counted against NCAA eligibility? Not high school. I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't know what they're talking about. Dalton cited junior hockey leagues and postgraduate prep school leagues where athletes compete for finishing high school without losing their eligibility.
Well,
I feel like that's easy stated as to say, you know what, you're right. Hockey time somewhere did not count against football eligibility. How many minor league baseball players have we seen come back and play college football?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. You played club lacrosse. You do not have freshman eligibility for football. That's never happened. This is a massive fear fail by the NCAA. So now this is what's going to happen. All the kids that have played JUCO that thought they were done, they're going to enter the portal instead of saying they're finished with football.
Being done.
Because a lot of them aren't going to go play in the NFL or the UFL or the CFL or the AFL or the AFL2 or the AFL4, whatever's out there now. We don't know. But this is a huge fail because this is going to set a precedent for a lot of guys to have more football. And then here's what else is going to happen. A lot of schools are going to start placing kids in junior college again. So go play here for a year or two, and then you can start with us. And you'll have your 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of eligibility after that. It's just nonsensical, in my opinion. But I guess the lawyers know better. Let's go to Gold Domer, wants to talk playoffs on the Buyers Right Hotline. Domer, welcome in.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are y'all?
Doing well, thanks.
Well, we've got a historic Friday night coming, the first on-campus playoff game, and I think it's just going to be an electric atmosphere. And it's really historic in terms of ESPN being involved and broadcasting a game inside Notre Dame Stadium. I don't know when the last time that happened, but it was probably ABC. It probably wasn't ESPN at the time, but that's a big change. In fact, it's been NBC since I believe 1991. So.
No, it's definitely going to be different. I'll get you that game in just a minute. I've got it in my notes. I got to get to it though first.
Yeah, I knew they did some ABC games. It was Notre Dame was one of the only games televised there for a little while. But as far as ESPN, the company, I can't remember the last time they did a game inside Notre Dame Stadium. Is Greg still on?
He is not. He had to go to his Notre Dame meetings.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I was going to give him a recommendation of a Peg restaurant. It's one of the best breakfast restaurants you can get in South Bend, Indiana. So I was going to kind of get him on that, and then they got the linebackers lounge. So I'll message him and recommend that. So, but yeah, I tell you, I think this is going to be a really good game. I think a lot of people who don't watch football are just assuming that Notre Dame is by far the better team just because they have Notre Dame and Indiana is not a team that they're used to watching. But I think Indiana actually has the better defensive line than Notre Dame does. I think Notre Dame has the better offensive line, but I believe their defensive line matches up very well against our offensive line. Our offensive line is very improved, but I think that has a little bit about considering the fact we haven't played very many premier defensive linemen ever since we played Texas A&M. So I think this game is going to be a very up in the air game, and I really believe what it's going to come down to is can Indiana run the ball on Notre Dame? Because as good as our defense is, we have been susceptible to runs, and considering the fact they run a lot of RPOs, I think that could keep our guys kind of guessing. So, I mean, what do you think about that, Cole? I know you've been studying the trenches. How do you see that matchup going?
I don't know if I would say Indiana's defensive line is better because I think they get a lot of assistance by what they're allowed to do and asked to do. I think if you're just taking guys across the board, I would still take Notre Dame's. But I do think that because of how they operate, it could be a potential problem. I also think that one of my bigger matchups to watch in this game are the edges of the Indiana defense. They are aggressive. They get upfield. They get a little bit too flat at times, and they move them a lot. So you're going to get a lot of twists, a lot of stunts with those guys. And if you have, let's just say you have quarterback inside zone called or quarterback lead off tackle or quarterback power off tackle, and those guys are disappearing and taking themselves out of play with a +1 blocker, all of a sudden you're in trouble. And I think that could be a real issue. Now, they get Notre Dame in 3rd and longs, obvious pass downs. I think it's a big advantage. But I don't like how much they move based on how much north-south run Notre Dame can implement. And that's with backs and quarterbacks. So I think Indiana's got to be really careful with how aggressive they call it up front because they're good players. But also I think some of the things that they do could end up being problematic in that game just because of how they operate.
Yeah, I think Notre Dame's tight ends could be a big difference in this game. I think both of our tight ends actually could make a big impact. And I do agree with you, that we could they could run themselves out of position the way that they play, especially against those QB runs. And I think Riley may have a coming out party. A lot of people across the country don't realize how well he's been playing and how good of an athlete he is. He's very limited, like you said, just a pure passer. But, man, I'm telling you, there's something about that kid. When he runs, he runs with absolutely no fear. He sacrifices his body. He's got great vision. And if he gets space, we have literally 3 backs that, between Love, Riley, and Price, they can take it to the house anytime. And so I think more than any game I can remember, everybody always says that whoever can run the ball will win the game. I think out of any game I can remember, because of the weather, because of the systems, I truly believe whoever has the most consistent running game in this game will win. And I'm telling you, I could easily see Indiana winning this game. I'm picking Notre Dame to win by I think 20-28, something like that. But I could easily see if this game goes the way that it could go, Indiana could absolutely go in there and walk out of South Bend, Indiana, with a win.
I don't have any doubts about it. I think that they are a great football team. I think they do some things schematically that could give just about anybody trouble. I don't think that mentally they were ready to play Ohio State. I think they let a couple of early mistakes really get to them, and they let 1-2 plays affect them for the next 20, 30 plays. And if they show up mentally prepared and don't make mistakes early, then it can be more than a game, and they absolutely could take it. It wouldn't really surprise me, honestly. But if Notre Dame plays their game and then plays their A game, they should win the game. Plain and simple.
Yeah, if we can run the ball, I think we got a really good chance to pull away. But Indiana does have the number 1 rush defense in the country. So I think it's going to be a classic. I hope it snows. And I think it could just be a classic old school college football game. And I think Xavier Watts. Look for Xavier Watts to make a play to change the game.
All right, there you go. Notre Dame, Indiana, tomorrow night. Domer, thanks for the call. Appreciate it. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. 800-239-WJOX. Don't forget about our friends at Wayne's. They have now wildlife removal services. So if you're having an issue with squirrels, rats, birds in the attic, they can get in there and get them. Also, if you have raccoon, possum in the garage, they can take care of them. So it's not just that Envirolawn protection that's going to get you set for when spring rolls around to have the yard lush, green, weed-free, or the termite protection or the mosquito protection in the spring and summer. Now they're going to keep the wildlife out of your house, and if they're there, they can come get them out as well. They'll extract those for you. Just a couple of things that Wayne's can do for you. 866-WAYNES-1, 866-WAYNES-1, or visit callwaynes.com today. Wimp Sanderson with us on the other side. Blue played for the weekend. We'll talk to him about Alabama's win last night on the hardwood, and what he thinks of Auburn maybe without Janai Broome moving forward. All that and more coming up here next on McElroy and Kubelik in the morning on Jocks 94.5. Nine o'clock, hour number 3 underway of Jocks 94.5. Bowl games last night. Western Kentucky goes down to JMU, and we had some entertaining bowl games yesterday. If you had a chance to watch them, kind of catch up on those. A couple of good games, couple interesting games as JMU takes it 27-17 in the Boca Raton Bowl. Caden Velkamp, 25 of 39, 302, 2 touchdowns. No interceptions, but JMU running back George Petway goes 14 carries, 100 yards. JMU lost their quarterback in this game, had to work their way through that. Western Kentucky lost 3 fumbles and 16 yards rushing for Western Kentucky in the game. Not enough to get it done. They go down to JMU, who finishes 9-4. UNLV takes out Cal 24-13 in the Art of Sport LA Bowl. Gronk on the sidelines. He was the host, I guess, of the LA Bowl.
I thought it was the Gronk Bowl at one point.
Had his bling in his belt that he was giving away to the MVP. UNLV finishes 11-3. They get the win. Haj Malik Williams only goes 5 of 18 for 96 yards. Jaden Ott carried the ball 11 times for 89 yards for Cal. There was just one turnover in this game. Cal turned it over. They outgained UNLV 348 to 291, and they get the win. So coming up tonight, you will get the R&L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. Feels like it's odd not to have the Cajuns in this one because they seemingly are in it every year. Georgia Southern at 8-4, taking on Sam Houston at 9-3. Also tonight on Prime at 7:15. The 9-5 Broncos against the 8-6 Chargers. New Orleans Bowl, 6 o'clock on ESPN2. By the way, if you're keeping up with that one. He joins us each and every week. Thanks to our friends at Coke and Piggly Wiggly. It's the coach, Wimp Sanderson. Coach, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing okay. We'll jump around. I don't know what y'all been talking about, but of course, NIL is big, trying to get as much money as you can. I think the easiest way to try to get money NIL-wise probably is do what Tennessee did, raise your ticket prices. I think they raised it $18 or something. I think that way, of course, your team's got to be decent to do that. From what I can gather and talking to people, the people that give the least amount back to the university are the former players. Any thought on that?
I think it's real. I think a lot of former players, Coach, have the mindset of, we put our bodies on the line. We did a lot of work. We gave a lot of effort. And I think a lot of players, too, now look at it as, well, if you want to get technical with this, we were cost a lot of potential earning power while we were in school. We never got anything for it. I know if this ruling is set and the however many billion they're giving back, like my group that I played with, we're not falling into that category. So we're not even going to get that. And I think that's how a lot of players sort of view it.
Yeah. I think it's, it's a difficult time in the money business, always has been. I think lawyers and judges and agents are sort of running our programs behind the scenes. And, of course, that's not the best thing for college football or college athletics. I think not because it's Auburn, but because I was down at Auburn for the Sonny Smith thing. I think Auburn's got a terrible football schedule for next year. I don't like it at all. They got to go to Waco, which is not good. Two teams that could beat you after that. Maybe not. South Alabama was one. And then you've got Arkansas and Texas A&M before you play Georgia. This year they said that they were set with their quarterbacks, and it didn't turn out as good as it wanted it to. The quarterback from Oklahoma is good. How good, I don't know. But I think the schedule for Alabama's pretty good. I thought the schedule for Auburn didn't fall real well. Have y'all talked about that at all?
You talking about next year's schedule?
Yeah, about next year's schedule. Yes.
I think Auburn's schedule is somewhat favorable when you're talking about next year.
Ooh, I don't think at all. I think the opposite completely.
What parts of it do you not like?
Well, I don't like opening up at Waco. I don't like playing two games back to back, Arkansas and A&M.
Is that because they got Walker White at quarterback now?
Well, I don't know. And then they got to play Georgia. I know Georgia games at home, and then they got. I think it's terrible, but that's just me because I'm a schedule freak. I watch, try to watch the stuff, so I don't know if that's right or wrong. You feel like it's really good, and maybe I'm dead wrong on it. I have no idea.
No, I just think that it's first off, Coach. It's hard to project because we don't really know what these teams are going to be yet.
Oh, I know. I know that.
So that's kind of why you look at it, and I guess part of it has to be, all right, I feel this way, or I feel like they'll add this, or if they put this in place, then we're going to be okay. But I mean, it's like you said, I'm not 100% certain Jackson Arnold's going to come in and rip it up. He's got the ability to, but I don't know if that happens. And then who else is going to replace some of the voids that they have? Who are they going to get out of the portal? Who else are they still going to lose in the portal? It's tough.
The $21 million that each school is getting, when the athletic directors have to divvy that out, football, gets what they want, basketball in some degree, but you end up with it pretty difficult on the athletic directors being able to please everybody, especially a lady sport, say South Carolina basketball versus men's basketball, or something like that. I think you have to be, the athletic directors not only are trying to push to get much NIL money, they got to be darn sure that they can please their coaches with amounts of money that they give each coach to run his program. I think it's difficult too.
And that is something that I wanted to talk about on the show today, Coach. We hadn't gotten to it yet because there's an email from John Cohen floating around that he sent to Auburn fans. There's the tweet from Greg Byrne, essentially telling Alabama fans they need to pony up. My question was just going to be to the listeners: how sick of this are you already? And how much of the responsibility goes on to the fans to pay for the team? Because like you said earlier, that former players are some of the smallest givers, and maybe that's the case. But how much of this falls into the fans' lap of saying, hey, if you want a better team to watch, we need more of your money. And that's the way it's going to happen. Because this doesn't happen in a lot of other places. Like MLB teams, they might raise your seat license price or season ticket price or concessions price, or Arthur Blank might change his mind on the affordable concessions there at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but they're not specifically reaching out to fans and saying, hey, if y'all want the number one quarterback in the draft to be signed and be kept, you need to give us more money.
Yeah, I think we've got big time problems there. On the basketball front, Broom Kid is not messed up. He can play for Auburn, and I'm glad of that because they need him to be as good as they can be, and they're darn good. Alabama played last night, struggled. One thing I have to be careful when I get on here because I don't want to try to anybody to think I'm coaching Alabama's team again. But I would say their coaches, are trying to get things straightened out as far as defending the three. You've got to defend the three. You cannot turn the basketball over quite as much as Alabama did early in that game. But Alabama and Auburn off to good starts in the SEC in basketball. The league is very good. They're talking about, I don't think that many, but they're talking about as many as 12 teams being in the NCAA tournament. I don't like them. I don't like them increasing the number in the NCAA tournament. I'd rather leave it where it is at 68, I believe it is. So we'll have to see there. So.
Well, I think most people are with you that they don't feel like the tournament needs to expand. If it does expand, it doesn't need to include, more automatic bids to bigger leagues. That's what I think people want to avoid. How good do you think Tennessee is right now, specifically on defense? They've held two opponents under 40 points this year.
Yeah. They're good. Rick, I've been knowing Rick long. He worked for me for a year. Not that doesn't mean anything, but I've been knowing Rick for a long time. They've done a good job defensively. They work really hard in recruiting. They really try to go out and find somebody that maybe that way off somewhere that people hadn't really seen that much of. They like. They're good defensively. People will hang up when I say this. I'm not sure that Kentucky shoots it on a consistent basis well enough to be as good as maybe we think they are. I think they shoot it well, but I think they have some inconsistent at times that they just don't shoot it near as well as they need to. Alabama shoots it well, and Auburn doesn't shoot it quite as well. Alabama's got a situation where a lot of their young players have come in and played well, and it's hard to find playing time. When you leave a school, there's two basic reasons that you leave a school. One is playing time and one is money. Those two factors right there, and it's not easy on these coaches to be sure that everybody's happy because they're not. So.
Well, Coach, regardless of what people think or don't think about the SEC in basketball this year, one thing that you have to give them credit for that is undeniable is the scheduling. And it has been difficult. It has been challenging. It has not backed down from just about anything. I wanted you to listen to this clip and just kind of tell me what you think about a certain basketball coach discussing his scheduling model and thoughts.
Tiers on who to schedule, like nobody. Part of the reason I want to play better teams is like, it's 2 degrees outside, snowing. Like, I don't really like the idea of nobody you coming in here and like, I always thought, like, what do we learn playing a game where we win by 20? But there's a methodology to it. And I'm going to have to adjust moving forward.
Coach, Wisconsin Green Bay lost to nobody you after that was said. Michigan Tech knocked them off 72-70. So what was your philosophy on scheduling? And if you did have lower tier teams, was it difficult for you to not say things like Doug Gottlieb just did about those opponents?
Well, my tier was this, and here's the factor. What gets you in the NCAA in the years that you're coaching? And what got you in the NCAA when the years that you were coaching were 20 wins? Now, was my schedule as tough as theirs is today? Probably not. We played UCLA, we played North Carolina, we played Virginia. But on a consistent basis, ours probably was not. My goal was to get us into the NCAA tournament. And I'm a schedule freak trying to be darn sure that we had, that we were able to get people that we could beat, some that we couldn't. But some that if they did beat us, we were okay, and we did that. We were fortunate enough in 12 years I had to get in the NCAA tournament 10 times, and back then it wasn't real easy. We had 10 teams in the league, but I think what fits your bill during the period of time that you're coaching, and times change everything. They change football, they change basketball, they change recruiting, they change how you give money. All these kind of things. When are we? I'll ask you this because you're a smart guy on this. Are we ever going to have? I'm jumping off of that. Are we ever going to have a time where we're going to have a barrier or a rule where you can break a rule in recruiting? I don't think that with the agent situation and all that we'll ever go back to breaking rules in football recruiting or basketball recruiting. Your thoughts on that?
It'll have to be some sort of tampering, coach, and there'll have to be text message evidence of it or email evidence of it. And I'd be willing to bet most of these coaches, some of them aren't extremely smart, but they're not dumb enough to do that. They know the major things to avoid. And having documentation of tampering or cheating that way, I think they'd be pretty smart, and they would have an idea of how to avoid that. So
well, I don't know. Well,
but the old school recruiting violations that you're talking about, like I don't. Yeah. How? It's like when Kay Ivey said, "Well, it's going to be a felony to offer somebody an NIL deal that's illegal." This and that. I'm like, well, how are you going to prove it? Yeah. You're sitting there talking to him about it, and he's like, "Well, we might have 180,000 for you if you were to come here, but we might not." And you're going to prove that? You can't.
Well, no, you can't. I just don't think we're going to have. We can go to Congress all we want to, or whatever, and it just ain't gonna work. I was trying. I don't know what y'all are going to do next week. We'll see, but I'll give a couple of games I think are blue plates for me. And both games, you will go against what I say. Some will. Not first game they won't, but you can go against what I say because you're not going to like the second game.
Okay.
The first game, I'm picking Texas. Now the line has gone up to 12, I think. I just think when you're playing on your home field, and you're so smart about football. I listen to you all the time. When you're capable of being as good defensively as Texas is. I understand there's a lot of talk about the quarterback. I got all that crap. But I just don't think that Clemson can go into Texas on Texas's home field and come close to winning.
I don't hate it, Coach. I mean, I think it's a lot of points, but I have struggled to see how Clemson's going to move the ball consistently.
Yeah, that's the other one. The other one, I have a lot of respect for both coaches, but I think Brent Key at Georgia Tech I just think that Georgia will be needed quarterback the way they play. So.
And have Haynes King. Pavia's got lost his left tackle, who's going to go to the portal. Singleton, wide receiver for Georgia Tech's in the portal. So it might just depend on who's available for those two teams and who wants to play. So
yeah, you might be right. Well, it's hard to pick them when people are running this way and that way. Anyway, I appreciate being on Piggly Wiggly and Coke by me. Give me a chance to be on every week, and I hope you guys have a great Christmas. And if we're on next week, I'll be glad to. And if you're not, have a good holiday. And Piggly Wiggly, walk in there and you can get meats and you can get vegetables. You can get anything you want. And they're really great people. I had lunch yesterday with Stanley Vasiglio, who is son Andy runs a lot of those Piggly Wiggly places. They're good friends of mine. Coca-Cola's a great drink. So appreciate you guys having me on. Let me know about next week.
We appreciate you, Coach. We'll catch up soon.
Right. Thank you.
All right, that's the Coach
All right.
Wimp Sanderson joining us on the Buyers Right Hotline. As you know, each and every week he's brought to us by Coke and Piggly Wiggly. Jolly tweets into the show quickly just to follow up with what Wimp Sanderson will say in there. Actually, you know what? I'm going to get to that on the other side. You guys have feedback because I asked the question. I told Coach this is a topic, and we still have the Rubik's Cube to get to. But there are a lot of people that are sort of wondering if the direction being taken by athletic directors is right or is what should be happening or is turning them off a little bit. When is it too much? I had a lot of fans tell me, like, enough's enough. I'm tired of being asked. And how responsible should fan bases be for the salaries of college football players? We'll discuss that right after this. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. 800-239-WJOX. You can text in 205-834-9450. Are you tired of athletic directors asking you for more money? We discuss it right after this on Mac and Cube in the morning. 9:21 a.m. Thursday, December 19th, right here on Jocks 94.5, JocksFM.com. You can listen online. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. Excuse me. Are you tired of athletic directors asking you for more money? How responsible should you be for coming up with the funds to get better college football players on your team? I mentioned Jolly tweets into the show. At Mac and Cube Cole, I'm a retired firefighter. I worked overtime and side jobs for years. No way I'm giving NIL. What's my return on my cash investment? Percentage of profits from the school? Alabama might as well paint over Saban Field and call it Emirates Field. It's not my mess. I mean, I think that we've already seen some teams have put logos on their school or on their field and found sponsorships. Here's part of what we're referencing, and this is not just an Alabama thing. Greg Byrne has a tweet that reads, Alabama fans, over the past few years, there have been drastic changes in college athletics. We've been careful during this transitional period to protect our position at the top of college athletics while being mindful to listen, engage, and learn from our generous supporters, proud alumni, and unrivaled fans to make sure that we protect our great traditions here in Alabama. But there's a time for talk and a time for action. Now's the time for action. Although we've been competitive from an NIL standpoint, our competition has us in their sights and are actively trying to surge ahead with NIL. You've heard examples of other teams using promises of $1 million paydays to lure away our players or convince them not to come to Alabama. It's time for the Bama Nation to fight back. Under a new model of college athletics, which is a result of antitrust lawsuit, the NCAA, a university can succeed if their fans purchase authentic NIL from student athletes. Good news is he goes on to discuss the NIL situation that they've created. A subscription to theirs isn't about the now, it's about the future. It's about roster retention for future seasons, keeping our legends in crimson. It's about attracting and developing the best recruits in the country to represent the Script A. You being a part of the team has never been more important. At Alabama, we've not measured ourselves against our competition. We are the standard, and that measurement is against the mirror and against a rich and proud history. But it's impossible to ignore what is taking place in college athletics. Hungry fan bases are acting decisively to give their respective programs competitive advantages. We must respond. We are Alabama. Join today. This is Greg Byrne doing his job, first and foremost.
Yeah.
His job is to raise funds and to get different ways of financial assistance to his school and to people that want to support. John Cohen lettered a similar letter that was emailed to Auburn fans. Dear Auburn family, in late November, we were treated to the latest in a long line of magical moments at Jordan-Hare Stadium versus number 15 Texas A&M. Last-minute scoring drive, blah, blah. For 85 years since its opening, 1939, Jordan-Hare Stadium has witnessed unforgettable Iron Bowls, Heisman-worthy moments, this and that. Every seat's in memory for students, alumni, fans of all ages. It's the place where Auburn's spirit is on display in the world to see. He goes on to say, we've always tried to be very thoughtful and transparent in our ticket pricing, particularly when it impacts our fans. These changes are necessary to help Auburn deliver on our promise to support student athletes at the highest level in this new landscape of college athletics. But we're not alone in this endeavor. Balancing revenue and expenses is not a process we take lightly. A course of action, however, must be made in order for our athletic programs to compete at an elite level for years to come. Thank you for your continued support. So he's just asking for more money for tickets. Where are you on this? You can text in 205-834-9450. Is it the fans' responsibility to go above and beyond to help formulate a better football team, to get more talent on the field? 800-239-9569. We've heard Greg say it. I'm not giving it NIL. I'm not doing it. It's not something that I do. And I think Coach Sanderson's probably right that most former players don't give a ton. And the main reason for that is they, one, feel like I gave a lot. I don't walk right. I don't sleep well. My body hurts. My knees ache. And you got that from me. And also feel like, hey, this from everything that's going to be given back, I'm not going to be able to get mine. You cost me the ability to earn. I gave you what I can give you. I think that's where a lot of people are. And I think a lot of fans that I've at least heard from have said they don't mind giving every now and then, but they're tired of being asked because it's already paid to have this exclusivity to get these tickets in this spot. And then now you're going to ask us for more. And then you're coming around and asking us for more again. Will tweets into the show at Mac and Cube. No, it's not our responsibility as fans to pay these players. I give enough money for facility upgrades, tickets throughout the year. So why should I be on the hook for paying some kid to come play ball? This whole portal crap has gotten way out of control. Crimson Convict wants to discuss it. He joins us now on the Buyers Right Hotline. Welcome into the show.
Hey, brother. Listen. So let me ask this question: What is going to keep teams like Texas and Texas A&M, who've got multi-billion-dollar boosters, who have no problem donating this money, or Oregon has a Phil Knight? Who is Alabama's Phil Knight?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure many schools in period have a Phil Knight, and that's not just the pockets, because there are schools that have multiple billionaires that support them, but they don't care as much about it as he does.
Okay, so I guess here's my issue. If Alabama fans want this tradition to continue, and you want to continue to see the product on the field, Greg Byrne is right. There are hungry fan bases out there who are going to go into their pockets just to win a national championship. And if we sit back and don't do I feel like it's our responsibility? No, I don't. But what choice do we have, Cole? I mean, where are we at when Tennessee fans say, by God, I want a national championship, and we're going to pay to do it, and the fan base is going to ante up and do that?
There's only one way to counter it, and it's to do it as well.
Okay. Well, I mean.
But I will say this, Crimson, like I understand that the Tennessee faithful did a great job, and I give them credit, and I give a lot of fan bases credit for like the Ole Miss thing, signing up for their deal, and that pushed them a long way. But this is how I kind of view it. I don't think any fan base, like all of it, plural, is putting a certain team over the hump. I think there are a couple of individuals at a lot of places that are putting teams over the hump, and you can have the icing on the cake with what the fans can do for you. Like when I used to work in medical sales, we had base business and capital business. Your base business is what you basically sold every day, every week, right? Your capital hits were your big commission checks. You sold those things once, twice, maybe 3 times a year. They were the big hits that hardly ever came. I don't know if the fans can be enough to be even really your capital business to give you those big hits. They need to be more your base business of just, okay, we know we have X amount coming in from them every month. That's going to sustain a large portion of our roster of just being happy here. But you better get those big capital hits from the big boosters, because you're going to need the quarterback every now and then. You're going to need to re-sign your left tackle. Your star receiver is going to want to stay and go look at what else is out there. That's where those guys have to come in and say, nope, we'll keep him. Here it is. Nope, we want to go get him. Here it is. It's the only way it can take place.
Okay, so then bottom line, A&M, Texas, Oregon are always going to be up at the top because they've got invested billionaires who are willing to contribute to that. Am I correct?
It sounds great in theory, but you still have to coach them, and they still have continuity and chemistry. You still have to be on the same page. Scheme is still a part of it. But if you're just talking talent, then yes, teams like that will be ahead of everybody else.
Okay, well, we got to have checks and balances, man. Somebody's got to come up with something, Cole.
Well, a lot of people think that this NCAA legislation or the government legislation that's coming down, this ruling will put a lot of that to rest. I personally don't believe it, because I think they're not going to go look at the underbelly of what the collectives could still do or still want to do. They're just going to go baseline rules, and people are going to find ways to circumvent it like they always have. It just might not be as cut and dry, might not be as out in the open. But you're right. And a lot of coaches do think that this will settle it all down.
Well, hey, let me ask you this. Why can't we go out and so where does the corporate sponsorship come into play? When do we go out there and we actually get university hired employees who are going out here beating the bushes for the local corporations to invest in this?
I think you have some right now. It's just they work for the collectives. And I think most of them probably do other things too.
Which is interesting, because I think also that was Greg's kind of been mentioned about private equity coming in. It seems like fans don't want that. Like they don't want necessarily to do that, but the money needs to come in from somewhere, and if fans aren't willing to do it, if the school's got to reach out for private equity, you don't want that either. Well, it seems like it's one or the other.
Yeah. I appreciate the call, man. They're great questions, and they're things that we don't know the answers to. I'll share this. I had a long conversation with an SEC head coach yesterday, and a lot of this came up. And his response was, listen, man, we are broken right now. It needs a reset bad. And this was not him complaining, not him griping. He's had a couple players he's lost in the portal. He had a couple recruiting battles that he's lost. He's had a couple that he's won. But he said, it's got to reset somehow, some way. He said, it's as bad right now as it has ever been, as broken as it has ever been, as backwards as it has ever been. Now tell Ole Miss fans that. You think they agree? No. They probably look at it and say, no, we good. We kind of like this double-digit win thing. Talking about getting in the playoff. A couple pieces here and there. Ball bounces a little bit different here and there. All of a sudden, boom, we're in. We can make a run. We're good with this. Now, Florida State fans might disagree and feel like this doesn't always work to your advantage. You can't always just manipulate the rosters this way. It is a mess. And unfortunately, I don't believe that this legislation solves all the problems. Because first and foremost, it's not NIL now. It's pay for play. And Diego Pavia just sued the NCAA and is likely going to get extra eligibility because he couldn't make NIL money when he was in junior college when NIL wasn't even really a thing. Think about how ass backwards that is. That's what we're dealing with here. That's what we're talking about. And the different ways in which people are going to attack whatever is laid out, supposedly that's going to be new down the road, that will also be limitless, just like it has been now. They're just going to find different things to sue over or different things to sue about. And the whole eligibility thing's coming. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to graduate and say, oh, you're telling me my job bagging groceries or my job selling copiers only makes $60,000 a year? Well, I was making $160 playing college football. I want another year. And you are keeping me from doing that. So I'm going to sue you. It's coming. I asked Charlie Baker about it at our seminar. And he point blank said, I hadn't thought about it. He said, it's a great question. He said, that's why we think as long as we keep it tied to academics, we won't be able to go there. But we've gotten far away from that anyway. That's coming. Player X is going to be done with his eligibility, and he's going to know he's not going to make as much money in the real world. He's going to go back and he's going to sue and say, you are keeping me from earning. And it's just more of the leeches, like all the people who think that they are leaders of these player personnel groups or leaders of these players unions, which don't exist except for one team. All these pretend players unions, they're all about the players, right? Yeah, they're all about the players. All about helping them. We'll see where it goes. More of your feedback on it and possibly the Rubik's Cube next on Mac and Cube in the morning. Thursday, December 19th. McElroy and Kubelik in the morning. 205-834-9450 is the text line if you wanted to get in there. We had a couple people call in during the break, couldn't hold on to join us, but the sentiment, John, from most people feels like that they don't feel like they should have more of the responsibility here. They don't feel like they should have to do extra to be able to bring this talent to their schools.
Especially since they're directly not going to get something out of it or for it. It'd be one thing if I'm giving more money to this, then I don't know, you'll let me come to practice more, or you'll let me or something else out of it. But now you're just asking for more money to, in essence, do the same thing that you're doing and bringing in recruiting all these players. So I can understand, even though the economy is not great, whatever, right now, just asking for this without providing something direct that the consumers can see. Because we've seen this lately with YouTube TV. Their prices are about to go up if you're a new customer, you're paying the new one now. But they haven't changed the lineup. They haven't provided anything else or anything new for you this time. The last couple times they've done it, they at least justify by saying, oh, hey, we're changing this, or we're bringing you this or that. Now there's like, hey, man, it's just the cost of business, yo. Sorry. And feel like you're getting got. And that's just what it feels like right now. Hey, we got to pay these players. We don't want to do it because, we're having to pay for all these other things. You know what would be great? You should do it. And that just feels like a crock.
Also, if you're a fan, you go out there and play, you go out there and perform. But in the NFL, the owners pay the salary. So
right.
if a player were to be grateful to anyone, I think it would be the owner. But if the fans are paying the salaries, like how many kids out there get that and show real gratitude to the fan? I don't know. I'm just asking. I haven't seen any, but I don't pay attention to a ton of it. Would it be different if the players, and I know they make them do these videos for their stuff or whatever, but like if the players like genuinely appreciated it and showed appreciation?
Maybe in theory.
Let me ask you this too, and I mean this sincerely. This is going to sound probably like a dumb question initially. Are teams that have not had a lot of recent success at an advantage here?
Yeah.
Tennessee's the example that was brought up earlier.
Yeah.
Why have they been so good at it? Fan base was desperate and hungry, and desperate times call for desperate measures. So what'd they do? They all lined up and started paying. Is this a little bit of an Alabama problem where, hey, man, we've been good for a long time without this. Now we got to all of a sudden step up and do a lot of this? And I don't think it's just Alabama fans that are saying, no, I'm not doing that.
Right.
It's not on me.
I mean, you mentioned Cohen asking for
money. Y'all figure that out.
Yeah.
It's not my problem. I think it's where most people are. But is there an advantage for teams that historically have had good seasons, good runs, but have not been really good very recently? Because the fans are going to be like, you know what? If this is what it takes, by God, we'll do it.
If I can buy it, why not?
Let's go.
Look at Ole Miss. They haven't had the top end whatever success, but at least they got the roster there to do it.
SMU.
Yeah. They've
not only do we want better players, we want to go to a better conference. Okay, let's have a meeting with 7 billionaires, and the guy that started IBM and the guy that started all these other things, and let's get them to go. Okay, cool. What do you need? $2 billion? We can come up with that. I'll call Joey. He'll call Robert. I'll call Billy. He'll call Will. We'll get it going.
You know what? We don't even need your conference revenue. We're good for now.
Keep it. Hell, Fred Smith already tried that with Memphis.
Yeah.
It didn't even work.
Yeah.
So Jolly makes a good point. Cole, there's nothing the fans are going to sustain in regards to money needs that NIL output has now reached. It's at the big money players or bust point. Why pay as a fan to watch kids leave in a year for the next high bidder? Insanity. There is some truth to that. But as I stated with base and capital hits, base and capital business, I think what these ADs are trying to do is build a little bit of a base business through a subscription model or higher pays for your seats or licensing fees, whatever that is, so they know they have X amount coming in a month. That way, if Billy Bob doesn't want to give you the $1 billion this year, okay, we know we got this.
At least
we can sustain that. Yeah. And we might have to go to Joe Capoto for our next big hit to get the quarterback or get the receivers or get the edge rusher. I mean, I don't think there is a particular model that works other than what Jolly just pointed out there. Have big boys to write big checks when you need them. That's it.
And even though they're billionaires, at some point, they're probably going to get tired of it.
Like you can tell me, and again, this is Tennessee fans will take this personal when they first hear it. You can tell me that the Tennessee fans did this. What logo's on the field at Neyland? Pilot. Backed by billionaires. So good job to the fans for doing a portion of it. But I'm sorry if I don't believe that the fans did the heavy lifting here. Otherwise, a fan would have his name on the field.
Correct, right.
And he doesn't.
Joe Capote Field.
Just saying. Tennessee's got big boys backing a lot of this. And the fans have come out of the woodworks and said, we'll help. And they have. Absolutely. But as Jolly states, they're not lifting the heavy rocks. They're throwing the stones. The dump trucks are being come in because of the billionaires. And that's just, maybe it is to that point where that's the only way it can be sustainable, is to have the massive checks from the people who can write them. Otherwise, you're going to get behind. Greg has said on the show multiple times, Alabama doesn't have those guys. I don't think Auburn has a ton of them. They got a couple. They got one that hadn't even really started to dabble into it yet. I don't know if he ever will. But a couple schools do, and they've said, hell with it. Here it is.
Which is why, as I mentioned before, if you're not willing to pony up, which is fully understandable, then you may need to be okay with private equity. You kind of see that in streaming and various other things. You want to pay for something? Okay, well, there are going to be ads and commercials in it.
Yep.
There's going to be all of that. You see Pilot on the field at Tennessee. That very well might have to come to Bryant-Denny. If the fans aren't willing to pay for it, the money's got to come from somewhere. And if, I don't know, Burger King decides, hey, you know what? We're going to invest in Alabama. You might see the Whopper right next to that Script A, right in the center field.
They might be running out of an inflatable Whopper in the tunnel.
Change Big Al.
The BK King guy that's at the Super Bowl is running out with the team every week.
Yeah, change Big Al to the King. Yeah.
Well, you have both.
That's true.
If you want a game day men's health patch on the practice uniforms and a Royal Buick GMC patch on the game uniforms, or a Wayne's sticker on the back of the helmet, if you don't mind that, cool. That's probably what's coming in a lot of places. They're going to find different ways to get this revenue. All right, we can keep talking about this. Keep your feedback coming. That or possibly hit the Rubik's Cube. Like, if not, we'll push it to tomorrow. Next, Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, so a lot of you chiming in on the revenue topic of where it should come from, the fans' role in it, what it should look like. 800-239-9569, you want to get in. I think we missed a couple of you in our last segment. Try to get to you here. You can still tweet into the show at Mac and Cube. You want to be a part there. Let us know what you feel like fans' role should be in paying college football players. ADs are asking for more. ADs are asking fans to pony up. Is that right? Is it your responsibility? John, we got a couple texts coming into the show on this also.
We do, in fact. Austin from Pell City, he texts in, when you buy merch from Yay, Alabama, it goes to the collective. Well, yes, you're not wrong with that. But also he points out that $30 donation a month by 10,000 fans at $3.6 million a year. That would help. And okay, yeah, but $30K a month? I mean, that's half a utility. Like that's quite a bit. That's asking a lot for your average fan. And to go from 10,000 fans seems like a lot.
I feel like that would be a lot. But also, some people think that's okay, and that's fine. But again, keep in mind, this is not just for football.
Correct.
So you say, $3.6 million. It's basketball, it's baseball, it's your other Olympic sports. Okay.
It's got to go somewhere. Jake from Hoover texts in, I have a problem with being a middle-class citizen and having to pay an 18-year-old that one day has the potential to make millions in the NFL. I get it.
Part of that is going to go back to what we've always talked about, the platform that these athletes are provided to be able to build the opportunity for themselves to go make that money. Now, there's a lot of people that don't agree with that. You know, your Jay Billises of the world will say that doesn't matter. They still should make X, Y, Z. Okay. But there is a ton of value in playing in the Southeastern Conference. There's a ton of value in representing the brand that is Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida, LSU, Georgia for the rest of your life. But we don't want to talk about any of that. That's not, it's not a tradable good. So therefore, people don't want to put that kind of value on that. So I think it's an interesting time because there are a lot of people that think this calms down in a couple of months. I personally do not. I don't think that's going to happen. I think some of it will, some of it might. A lot of coaches do. But there's going to be another side to it. There's going to be another way around some of this. And they're going to find it. We just don't know what that is yet, John.
One text from a guy who lives in Arkansas. Just one guy's opinion, but as a Vanderbilt alum, I know my wife and I are much more interested in supporting research at Vanderbilt's Children's Hospital or supporting academic scholarship than paying players. NIL seems like a distant luxury for them. Examine your conscience and priorities. I will never give more to NIL than to qualified charities that serve a mission. Fully get that. Because I do think it's weird that you're asking fans to donate not to a charity, not to something to help out, to just so players can come and play football. Yeah. Seems weird and odd.
Talent. You're donating to talent. But let's not be real. This is why we love college football. Where on the totem pole of importance is college football for a lot of people? Pretty high.
It's up there.
I mean, you got your faith, you got your family, you've got your job. Some people would have it above those three. And if that means they're not going to be able to join the gym this month, or they have to do without some of the subscription services to watch different things, so be it.
They're willing to do it.
Might be fine with that.
Because overall, it is, if not at least entertainment, at not something more, and people are willing to pay a lot to see and do that. One more text that has come in. How big of a fool do these ADs think people are? The schools are drowning in football-generated money. Figure out a way to get some of that money to the players.
That's the reset that needs to happen at a lot of places because they're not drowning in money. There's a lot coming in, but there's also a lot that's already, or most that's already accounted for going out. And let's be honest, the major reset that probably needs to happen are some inflated salaries across the board, and that starts with head football coaches.
Yeah.
And is that ever going to happen? Like, number one, is Jimmy Sexton going to let that happen? No, because there's another place that'll pay it. That's the problem, is you can't go to Kirby Smart and say, hey, $11 million a year? Okay, cool. I got a list of 7 places that'll pay more right this second.
One last one, Stephen from Leeds. Fans should donate. We waste money on $8 cups of coffee. They basically get free entertainment on college football Saturday. What's $100 to a regular fan, especially if you break it down per family member?
Okay, well, if you're going, it's damn sure not free.
Oh, correct, right, yeah.
And Did YouTube TV not just raise the price again?
Yes, it is now $82.
That ain't
72.
free.
Yeah,
last
correct.
time I checked. Now, if you're looking for the over-the-air signal to watch the time that they're on ABC 2 or 3 times a year, okay,
Yeah,
maybe
right,
that's free.
yeah.
You're still paying for your power. Last
Mhm.
time I checked.
Yeah.
So I don't even think it's free. And let's not discount the value of coffee in the morning. He must not have a morning job.
It shows. No.
Some of us has to have that. I mean, it's our weapon of mass destruction. Matt Stokes tweets in, love college football, will buy plenty of merch, but straight cash? Would rather give to my kids' high school or other local charities, etc. Might be persuade to give for non-revenue sports.
Ooh, heaven forbid.
Hold on. Let's not pretend like high schools aren't doing this.
Yeah, heaven forbid it comes to that.
No. There are some doing
it. Is.
It's happening.
Yeah.
Tide Walker tweets in, take all the money going into liberal arts and move it to football. Tide, no.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Come on. You can't do that.
No. How else would we radio people get degrees, man? Come on.
Communication degree, thank you very much.
Well, yes, but there's quite a few that are still in liberal arts.
I believe it was in the School of Liberal Arts.
Yes,
though.
correct, right, yeah.
It's not like I was academically qualified to be in any other school. So therefore, yes, that would be a poor idea. I don't think that would be a great idea. We'll do Rubik's Cube tomorrow. I'll hit you with one bad box score of the day quickly. John, the Weber State.
They are the Colonels?
They're the Wildcats.
I was
they
close.
just snuck past the Lincoln University.
They are the Logs.
They're the Oaklanders.
Oh, okay.
128-58 last night in men's basketball.
Ooh, that's a firm double up. Good Lord.
Lincoln, 23 of 77 from the floor. They did shoot 36 threes.
Okay, well, that's
They
a
only
good
made
day.
7, though.
That's a bad day.
Let's see, 23 minus 77. What would that be?
That is
54?
54, yes.
On 54 misses, Lincoln University grabbed 3 offensive rebounds.
Is Gottlieb their coach?
Stop it. They were out-rebounded 62-25 in the game.
That's awful.
Weber State, 47-76, 17 of 32 from 3.
Just out here. Wow.
Now, I will say Lincoln only turned it over 10 times.
Okay.
For a bad box score of the day, that's actually really
That's
low.
actually pretty solid, yeah.
All right, we're back tomorrow, 7 to 10 a.m., getting you set for a weekend of college football playoff action. 3-man front comes at you next.